Mom, Dad. Mushue's voice was swallowed up by the wind. She got up and ran out staggeringly. The asphalt road under her feet had turned into mirror-like ice, and every step was like dancing on the tip of a knife. The city has become a purgatory. Cars piled into twisted metal tombstones, streetlights flickering with their last glimmer, people screaming in the distance, soon drowned out by the storm. The news was talking about climate anomalies, but Muxue knew the truth: those damn climate weapon experiments were out of control. The military's secret base was supposed to control the weather, but instead it triggered global disasters. Extremely cold ice storms, scorching sand and dust, floods, fire and rain. Reincarnation was raging, and the earth was going crazy with revenge. Human. Now they are just frozen corpses or prey about to mutate. The biting cold wind was like thousands of ice blades, tearing at Mushue's cheeks. She gritted her teeth and hugged her mother's cold body tightly with both hands. The loud noise just now was still echoing in my ears. The high-rise building collapsed like a broken skeleton of a giant beast. Reinforced concrete smashed into the street, and frost instantly sealed the broken edges. The sky was gray and chaotic, and snow particles mixed with violent wind hit the body like countless bullets. Just now, Mushue's father was trying to pry open the door to his home, but his chest was pierced by falling glass shards, and his blood was instantly frozen into dark red ice. She watched him fall with her own eyes, the fear in her eyes frozen for eternity. She stumbled into an abandoned garage. The door had been blown ajar by the wind, and it was as dark as a tomb inside. Muxue gasped and leaned against the wall, groping for the toolbox with trembling hands. She is an engineer who specializes in modifying vehicles, and now this is her only salvation. There was an old off-road vehicle in the garage. The hood was covered in frost, but the tires were still intact. Fuel? She caught a glimpse of a half-full barrel of diesel in the corner. The only food was a few cans of compressed biscuits and a bag of frozen cans. This little thing can't last 3 days. Suddenly, there were footsteps outside the door, heavy and accompanied by breathing. A woman broke in, her tall figure wrapped in a worn-out military coat, with bruises on her face from the cold. Is there anyone inside? Damn it, this weather. The woman glanced around and locked eyes with Muxue. Are you still alive? Muxue raised her head and recognized her. Bai Ning, the security captain of the nearby community, who always looked iron-blooded. Sister Bai Ning. It's all over, outside. Bai Ning nodded, her eyes like daggers. I know. The high-rise building fell down half a street, and mutated dogs were gnawing on the corpses. I saw their eyes red like will-o'-the-wisps. She closed the door, the wind and snow were blocked out, and the garage instantly became a little hotter. We have to go, we can't handle the next wave of ice storms here. More figures poured in. A strong man with an iron pipe on his shoulders and a full beard. A thin young man carrying a communications backpack and holding a broken radio in his hand. And finally a man wearing glasses with blood on his body and holding a medical kit in his hand. The strong man Chu Tian gasped and shook off the snow on his body. I just killed 2 mutant rats. Their claws can tear steel plates. Bai Ning, are there any cars here? Otherwise we will all freeze into popsicles. Young Suyu said in a trembling voice. The channels are all messed up. The military signal is cut off, leaving only noise. I heard that there is a refuge area in the south, but the road is closed. Dr. Yichan pushed up his glasses and calmly checked his wounds. Frostbite and infection, there are not enough supplies. We have to find transportation. Otherwise the infection will spread and the whole team will be destroyed. Bai Ning glanced at everyone, her voice was like an order. Listen, the world is over. Climate weapons are out of control, ice and fire are reincarnated, and mutated creatures are running all over the streets. The shelter dome is the only hope, go south and pass through the ruins. But now we have to survive tonight. She looked at Muxue. You engineer? Can this car be driven? Muxue stood up, wiped the ice slag off her face, and walked towards the off-road vehicle. Everyone followed, their eyes full of despair and doubt. Chu Tian sneered. Is this a broken car? The tires are cracked by the frost, and the engine is probably stuck. Girl, are you okay? Don't waste time, we only have 1 barrel of fuel and 2 days of food. Suyu agreed, his voice trembling. Yes, I tried the nearby cars but they were all out of gas. If the storm comes again outside, we can't even get out. Yi-chan shook his head. Physiologically, the human body's cold tolerance limit is -40 degrees. And now it's -60 degrees outside. We need to keep warm. Otherwise our heart will stop beating. Muxue ignored them and knelt in front of the car. His hands were purple from the cold, but he skillfully removed the hood. The tools jingled and she grabbed a wrench and a welding gun from the toolbox and started cutting the ice. What do you know? She murmured in a low voice. The image of her family's corpse flashed in her mind. Her anger turned cold. This car is a military chassis, and I changed it to snow mode. The crowd looked on and laughed at him at first. Chutian crossed his arms. A woman is playing machine repair? I have been a soldier for 10 years and I don't dare to touch this lump of ice. Suyu huddled in the corner. Hurry up, the howling of the wolf is approaching. But gradually the atmosphere changed. Muxue first used a welding torch to melt the ice blockage in the engine. The firelight illuminated her determined face, and sweat mixed with ice water dripped down. She removed the radiator and converted it into a simple heat circulation system, picked up insulation pipes from garage scraps, and welded the intake and exhaust pipes. Fuel cycle saving 30%. She explained, her voice as calm as ice. Chu Tian's eyes widened as the iron pipe slipped from his hand and hit the ground with a muffled sound. How the hell did this happen? The radiator was used as a heat source. Muxue didn't stop and turned to the tires. Reinforce the tread with iron wire and rubber strips, and cut them into the shape of snow grapples. Sliding on ice will double the grip. She climbed under the car, hammered the suspension, and strengthened the shock springs. Suyu came closer. His eyes were as wide as copper bells and his voice was trembling. Oh my God, your speed! I have hacked the military network, and I have never seen such a fast method. This car can run through a blizzard. Yi-chan squatted down to check and murmured, Genius! It is so accurate even under the physiological limit, and the handshake does not exceed 1 millimeter. The corners of Bai Ning's mouth raised slightly, and admiration flashed in her eyes. Muxue, you saved us. Half an hour later the car had changed. The body was covered with silver insulation film to reflect the cold light. A signal antenna was welded to the roof. The trunk was filled with fuel barrels, food and medical kits, and each item was fixed with ropes. The engine roars to life, heat waves spurt from the exhaust pipe, and fog rises in the garage. Chu Tian touched the car body and his voice trembled. Damn, this isn't a car, it's a monster. I thought we were dead. Muxue wiped her sweat and stood up. Open the car door. Get in the car. Sister Bai Ning, you lead the team, Queen Chu Tian. Suyu monitors the channel, Yi-chan checks the health. I will drive. Bai Ning nodded and the division of labor was clear. Suyu, scan for rescue signals, Yi-chan, check body temperature every hour. Materials are tight. Each person has a mouthful of water and a piece of biscuit. Vifaraps will die. The car door slammed shut, and the off-road vehicle crashed open the garage door and rushed into the storm like a steel beast. Outside is a white hell. The field of view is only 10 meters, the wind speed is 50 meters per second, and the snow is beating against the car windows like a whip. Muxue held the steering wheel tightly, and the grappling hook tires bit into the ice. The car body trembled slightly but was as stable as a rock. The fuel is 60% left and can last for 200 kilometers. Muxue shouted. Suyu tapped on the radio in the back seat, and the noise in the earphones was harsh. The signal is weak. There is a predator channel, saying there is a dome in the south, but there are mutant wolves on the road. Yi-chan checked everyone. The frostbite is slight, Muxue, your modifications saved my life. The heat cycle made the car 20 degrees Celsius. Chu Tian looked at the wind from the back window and tightened his grip on the iron pipe. I feel something is wrong. There is a red light flashing behind. The convoy accelerated and rushed south, passing through ruins in an ice storm. In the distance, the remains of high-rise buildings look like ice-carved tombstones. Occasionally, corpses of mutated rats are lying around, their claws still twitching. The smell of supplies filled the car, and everyone's nostrils were twitching. They were hungry and roaring like wild beasts, but Bai Ning's gaze swept over them, and everyone suppressed their greed. Suddenly, Suju screamed, wolves. 300 meters behind, red eyes. They are chasing. Muxue glanced at the rearview mirror and her heart sank. In the snow curtain, dozens of pairs of blood-red eyes flickered like will-o'-the-wisps. The mutated wolf had a huge body, hair like steel needles, and its claws scraped against the ice, making a harsh friction. They accelerated, the leading wolf roared loudly, and the distance quickly closed. Chu Tian's face turned pale and his voice trembled. Damn 50. They are not afraid of the cold and come straight to us. Muxue, you can't get rid of them. Bai Ning pulled out his gun. First battle. Get ready. The pack of wolves came like a black tide. The giant wolf at the front jumped up and smashed its claws at the rear of the car, causing the car body to shake violently. The car body shook violently, and the giant wolf's claws dug into the rear insulation film like steel hooks, tearing out a long crack and sending ice chips and metal fragments flying everywhere. Muxue's heart almost stopped. She turned the steering wheel fiercely, and the grappling hook tires made a harsh friction sound on the ice. The front of the car deflected 3 meters, throwing away the monster. In the rearview mirror, the red eyes of the wolf pack flashed like a blood moon. The leading wolf fell to the ground and howled into the sky. The sound penetrated the storm and penetrated everyone's eardrums, making the air in the car freeze instantly. Damn it! They bit the tail fin. Chu Tian jumped up from the back seat, raised the iron pipe high, and smashed the wolf's claws outside the car window, but the glass vibrated and did not crack. Muxue, speed up. These beasts are not afraid of the cold. Their fur is like iron armor. Bai Ning's gun was loaded, and with a bang the bullet penetrated the rear window and hit a flanking wolf that was rushing towards him. Blood splashed in the snow, and instantly froze into red crystals, but the wolves remained undisturbed. More figures jumped up, claws digging at the side of the car, leaving deep grooves. The heat wave from the thermal circulation system in the car began to leak. The temperature plummeted to 10 degrees, and everyone's breath turned into white mist. Suyu huddled in the corner, the radio dropped to the ground, and his voice was so sharp that it seemed to break into pieces. 300? No more. They smell food, our cans. Muxue, the car can't hold up, they are tearing it apart. Yi Chen's medical box overturned and the bandages were scattered. He grabbed a handful and pressed it on Suyu's hand, which had blisters from the cold. Don't panic, the arteries are still open. But if the car breaks down, we will all freeze to death. At minus 50 degrees, the body's heat loss is 200 degrees per minute, and shock will occur within 10 minutes. The bodies of her parents flashed through Muxue's mind. The cold touch was like a needle pricking her heart. She bit her lip, the smell of blood mixed with sweat. Shut up. Hold on tight. She pushed the accelerator to the bottom. The engine roared like a wild beast, and hot air spurted out from the cracks, scorching away several wolves that were approaching. But the tires began to slip on the ice, and although the grappling hook was strong, it was no match for the running of the wolves, and the distance was shortened to 50 meters. Despair surged over him like a cold wave, and Chu Tian murmured, "It's over. I've killed bears before, but I've never seen this kind of formation." Just when the wolves were about to encircle them, Muxue caught a glimpse of the remains of an abandoned viaduct on the side of the road, with frozen steel beams sticking out like broken claws. She swerved, the car slid sideways, the tires dug a snow groove, and she headed straight for the narrow ice path under the bridge. "Trust me," she shouted, locking the steering wheel with her hands like iron vices. Everyone's eyes widened, and Bai Ning's gun muzzle drooped slightly. "This is too narrow, the car is 3 meters wide, and the ice road is 2.5 meters. Chu Tian's face turned livid. "Sister, are you crazy? If you squeeze in, you will get a steel plate sandwich biscuit." Suyu screamed. "The wolves are outflanking, don't try." But Muxue didn't listen. She had already calculated. The bite force of the grappling hook tires, plus the thin ice layer melted by the heat cycle. The front of the car plunged into the ice road first. Sparks flew from the steel beams on the side. Large pieces of the insulation film were scraped off, and the cold wind poured in like a knife. The wolves followed, and the giant wolf at the front tried to squeeze hard, but was stuck in the steel beam and howled miserably. Muxue accelerated, and the rear of the car swung, knocking away 2 flanking wolves. The back of the ice road instantly turned into a slaughterhouse, with wolf corpses piling up, blocking the pursuers. The car rushed out of the ice road and came to a trembling stop. The red eyes of the wolves lingered in the snow behind them, but they did not dare to pursue it. It was dead silent inside the car, and most of the heat had been lost. Everyone bundled up tightly and gasped for air. Chu Tian was the first to react. He stared at Muxue's back. The iron pipe fell to the ground with a trembling voice. You? How the hell did you do that? I'm blinded by that ice road, which is not even half a centimeter wide. You didn't look in the rearview mirror? The Wolf King is still staring. His beard was covered with frost, his eyes were full of disbelief, and the strong man's body was trembling slightly. Suyu picked up the radio, his hands shaking like chaff. It's amazing. I saw a racing driver when I was hacking, but I wasn't so brave or so accurate. Sister Muxue, are you a monster? The car didn't overturn. The wolves were all stuck. Yi-chan pushed up his glasses, checked the tire scratches and murmured. Physiologically impossible, the hand speed reaction exceeds 200 milliseconds. The friction coefficient on the ice is 0.1. You have optimized the grappling hook. Genius. Bai Ning put away her gun and patted Muxue on the shoulder, her eyes like a ghost. Sister, you saved a second life. I thought it was all over just now. Her iron-blooded face showed rare cracks, and her voice was low and trembling. Muxue didn't look back and wiped off the blood on the steering wheel. She bit her lip just now. She felt the eyes of everyone burning on her back, and doubts turned into admiration, but the hole in her heart was even bigger. Her parents' bodies were still in her mind, her family was gone, and this motorcade was her only anchor. The fuel is 58% left. We were overloaded just now and used 20% of the fuel. We can last for 180 kilometers without replenishing supplies. We will freeze to death before we starve to death. She said coldly, restarted the engine, her headlights pierced the snow curtain and ran southward. The storm became more intense, the freezing temperature of -50 degrees was as sharp as 1,000 needles, the car windows were covered with ice, and the field of vision was only 20 meters away. Muxue monitored the instrument while driving, her mind racing. The tire grappling hook was worn out for 15 minutes and needed to be optimized. She grabbed the passenger's tool bag, took apart a spare rubber strip with one hand, and cut it into a barb shape while driving. Chu Tian, help me fix it. Chu Tian was stunned and came over to see her technique, his eyes widened. Modify while driving? Don't your hands shake? I'm going to vomit even if I sit still. He took it clumsily, and Muxue guided him to weld the edge of the tire. The new grappling hook shone with metal, and its bite force was increased by 30%. When the car body slides, it is as stable as walking on flat ground, and no one feels any bumps. This is simply not human. Suyu murmured, wrapped in a blanket that Yi-chan had just wrapped to treat the frostbite on his hands. The blisters burst and yellow water seeped out. Yi-chan used the remaining antibiotics to apply them. There is a shortage of thermal insulation materials. There are only 3 blankets and 2 batteries. It won't last tonight. Suyu, your body temperature is 35 degrees. If it drops any further, you will die. Bai Ning glanced around the car, and the supplies were piled in the back box. 12 compressed biscuits, 8 cans, enough for 2 days, a sip of water and 1 biscuit per person per day. Strictly control it. Anyone who touches it one more time will be thrown off the bus. Her eyes were like daggers scanning Suyu's greedy eyes. He swallowed and retracted. In the snow ahead, an abandoned supermarket loomed, with its sign crooked and half of its frozen glass door broken. Bai Ning pointed the way. Stop. Search point. Food is not enough for 3 days. Give Suyu's radio batteries and blankets to save lives. Muxue slowed down and the car slid into a side alley of the supermarket. The engine stalled and the coldness rushed in instantly, like the god of death opening its mouth. Chu Tian jumped down, holding the iron pipe on his shoulders, and guarded the door. I'm watching wolves or people will be killed. Hurry up, 10 minutes. The team rushed into the supermarket, which was a frozen hell. Shelves collapsed, cans rolled down, and frozen fruits and vegetables shattered into ice slag. Muxue went straight to the tool area, picked up wire and tape, and searched for an optimized solution. Bai Ning commanded. Suyu's battery area, Yi-chen's medicine, Muxue's food and fuel. I'm on alert. But the ugliness of human nature breaks out in hunger and cold. Suyu was the first to pick up a bag of freeze-dried meat, His eyes turned green, and he hid it in his arms. Yi-chan caught a glimpse and shook his head. Physiological needs will drive theft, but the team collapses and we all die. Muxue turned around and saw it, his eyes as ice. Take it out. Suyu blushed and trembled. Just a little. Hunger hormones are in my brain, I can't help it. Chu-tun shouted from the door. Boy, how dare you be greedy? I'll smash your legs. His eyes were bloodshot, and the iron pipe hit the ground, causing the ice to crack. Bai Ning pulled out the meat bag and threw it to Muxue. Discipline comes first. Total food increased to 15 cans, 5 blankets, 3 batteries, and half a barrel of fuel. 3 days in total, don't even think about it. Everyone's noses twitched, greedy like wolves, but Bai Ning's gun muzzle swept over and suppressed the flames. On the way back, the wind and snow suddenly tightened, and 3 mutated wolves sprang out from behind the shelves, testing the food in small groups, and locked their red eyes on the smell of materials. Chu Tian laughed and rushed forward, swinging the iron pipe like the wind, breaking the first wolf's spine and freezing his brain into white foam. The second one pounced on his chest and tore open the military coat with its claws. He carried it hard and smashed the wolf's jaw with his knees. Come on, you beast. The third one bit his calf, and he roared and smashed it to death. Blood spurted out and turned into ice armor. The team rushed out. Chu Tian dragged his injured leg into the car, and Yi-chan made an emergency examination. Large lacerations, wolf poison entering the bloodstream, risk of fever hallucinations. Wolf meat is edible, but the toxins accumulate, so it can be eaten after being roasted for a short period of time. He cut off a piece of wolf leg meat and threw it into the thermal cycle oven. Chu Tian gasped, staring at Muxue's bandaged wolf meat, and said in a hoarse voice, Sister, you just optimized the car door locks and anti-wolf claws in the supermarket. I thought I was the warrior, but now look, you are the monster. The wound stopped bleeding so quickly. Muxue tightened the bandage and did not raise her head. Engineer, suturing is the basic thing. Her hands were as steady as a machine, and the needle and thread flashed under the light. Yi-chan looked on and murmured, The accuracy is surgical level, and there is no error in sub-zero environments. The convoy continued to run, but the storm intensified and the fuel dropped to 52%. Bai Ning ordered, Dig an ice cave and provide temporary shelter. Suyu, scan the signal and rest for 2 hours. When Muxue parked the car, Chu Tian and her used iron pipes to shave the ice and dig a 3-meter deep hole. The rear of the car circulated hot air and melted the walls to strengthen it into a dome. A blanket is laid in the cave, and a small fire is lit with wolf meat. The aroma is enticing, but each person only gets a small piece. The toxin burns the tip of the tongue, making the hunger even more intense. Suyu huddled in front of the radio, the battery glowed slightly, and the noise in the earphones was like a ghost crying. Suddenly, he sat up suddenly, his eyes widened as if he had seen a ghost. Signal. Weak signal rescue channel. Shelter dome coordinates. Convoy assembly. But the location is far east, a 50-kilometer detour. Bai Ning's eyes lit up. Send a signal? Expose the location and the predators will come. Chu Tian spat blood. Fat. If you don't, we will die. Yi-chan shook his head. The risk is high, the channel is unstable, it may be a trap. Muxue stared at the fire, silent. Suyu turned his head, his voice trembling. Sister Muxue, what do you think? Should it be sent? This signal is like the military but mixed with noise. Everyone's eyes were focused on her. The air inside the cave was stagnant, the wind and snow roared outside, and the howls of wolves echoed faintly. Muxue's eyes flickered in the firelight, and the burnt aroma of wolf meat still lingered on the tip of her nose, but it could not cover up the howling of ghosts and wolves in the wind and snow outside the cave. Suyu's question was like a stone thrown into stagnant water, and everyone stopped breathing for half a beat. On the wall of the ice cave, the water vapor blown out by the thermal cycle condensed into ice needles, which fell drop by drop, hitting everyone's heart. Send it. Muxue finally spoke with a voice as cold as a blade. If we don't send it, we are doomed. If we are exposed, we will be exposed. The wolves will chase after us, and the predators will come sooner or later. So you send it now. The coordinates are encrypted and will only be broadcast 3 times. Suyu's hands trembled even more, and the radio antenna swayed in the firelight. He swallowed with fear and ecstasy in his eyes. Sister Muxue. You say send it, I will send it. The channel noise has the military mark, the shelter dome. That is a legend. His fingers flew, typing in the coordinates, the battery light flashed, and pressed the send button. The first buzzer sounded, the signal rushed into the storm, and everyone held their breath. Bai Ning nodded and pulled the gun bolt. Okay, it's decided. Chu Tian will guard the entrance of the cave. Yichun will prepare medicine, and Muxue and I will optimize the vehicle. Rest for half an hour and break camp.
Chu Tian grinned.
The bandage on his injured leg was bleeding. He grabbed the iron pipe and stood up. His body as strong as a bear blocked the entrance of the cave. Ice and frost fell from his beard. I'll bear it. Kill as many wolves as you come. But there was a trace of exhaustion in his voice, and his calf was in burning pain. Wolf's poison blurred the edges of his vision. Yichun opened the medical kit and pushed the last tube of antibiotics into Chu Tian's vein. The toxin has suppressed it, but the fever is 39 degrees and hallucinations can come at any time. I'll give you a blanket, don't be brave. There was a brief moment of peace in the cave, with the flames licking the remains of the wolf meat, and hunger eating away at the heart like a worm. Muxue climbed out of the ice cave and checked the vehicle. Hot air escaped from the tear in the insulation film, scratches on the grapple tires reached as deep as the rubber layer, and the fuel gauge needle trembled at 52%. She grabbed the tool bag and the blueprint flashed in her mind. Flamethrower? Use fuel drum residual pressure and waste spray hose. Impromptu modification, done in 10 minutes. But despair is like an avalanche crushing everything first. The wind and snow outside the cave suddenly stopped for a moment, and then the ground shook. Boom! Cracks exploded on the roof of the ice cave. Countless red eyes flashed like blood stars, and dozens of mutant wolves poured in like a black tide. Their fur is iron gray, they are as cold-resistant as demons, and their claws can cut ice like cutting tofu. The leading 3 giant wolves are 3 meters long, with spines growing on their backs, and their saliva freezes into poisonous needles. The wolves went straight to the fire and the pile of supplies, smelling the smell of cans, and roared like ice on the cave wall. Wolves! The main force is coming. More than 300. Suyu screamed and the radio fell down. He rushed towards the battery area and hugged the last 2 pieces. The second signal was broadcast, and the noise was mixed with howling wolves. Chu Tian was the first to pounce, and the iron pipe swung into a wind wheel, hitting the first wolf's head. His skull exploded like a watermelon, and frozen blood sprayed all over his face. Get out of here, you beast! But the wolves surged forward, and 5 of them pounced on his chest and abdomen. Their claws tore open the military coat, dripping with blood. He roared and kicked 2 heads away. The iron pipe penetrated the throat of the 3rd head. But the 4th head bit the iron pipe and threw it away. It hit the cave wall and was hit by an avalanche.
Bai Ning Shagun's Zhang O Ut repeat then. Bang bang bang.
The bullet penetrated the brain, and the 3 wolves fell to the ground twitching. But the magazine was empty. She grabbed a torch, a wooden stick lit by the remaining flames of the wolf meat, and waved it into a fire ring. Fire! Use fire to drive. Yichun Suyu. Hit the wolf with the supply box. The firelight reflected red on her iron-blooded face, and her blood was mixed with sweat, but her voice was as steady as a mountain. Yichun threw down the medical kit, grabbed the compressed biscuit box and hit a wolf in the eye. The biscuits shattered and scattered, and the wolf retreated with a howl. But a flanking wolf pounced on him, biting his shoulder, sinking its teeth into the flesh and tearing off a piece of flesh. He groaned, put his knee on the wolf's belly, pulled out the bandage and strangled the wolf's neck, severing the trachea. Physiological limit. The bleeding is 500 milliliters. Stop the bleeding. When he rescued himself, his hands were shaking badly. Suyu curled up on the ground, his wolf claws clawing closer, and he cried. The 2nd shot is over. The 3rd shot can't be fired. A young wolf, a wolf king bloodline, 2 meters in size with red eyes like lights, rushed towards his throat. Chu Tian got up covered in blood, his injured leg dragging the bleeding path. He threw himself to block it, and the iron pipe pierced the young wolf's heart. You little beast, die. The young wolf twisted and pierced his arm, spurting out poisonous blood. His face was twisted like a ghost, and he wrenched the wolf's neck forcefully. The corpse hit the ground, making the ice cave tremble. But he fell down, a pool of blood spread, and he gasped like a broken bellows. I can't stand it anymore. The Wolf King is still behind. The wolves surrounded him, half of the torches in the cave were extinguished, and the supply boxes were overturned. The cans rolled down and were stepped on, the biscuits were frozen to pieces, the blankets were torn, and half a barrel of diesel oil rolled out of the fuel barrel, leaving oil stains on the ground. Hunger, cold and fear intertwined, and human nature was on the verge of collapse. So you grabbed a can and gnawed it? Yi-chan murmured. It collapsed? Team discipline. Muxue jumped back from the car, murderous intent burning in her eyes. She had just finished modifying the flamethrower prototype. The fuel pipe was connected to the thermal circulation nozzle, the pressure valve was welded shut with wire, and the ignition wire was short-circuited with a battery. The wolves were already 3 meters away and she shouted, "Get away! Chu Tian, hold the Wolf King's cub corpse." Bai Ning used the torch to draw oil. Without waiting for a response, she rushed into the wolf wave, holding a flamethrower and pointing it at the hole. The repression broke out first. The wolf's claws dug into her calf and blood spurted out, but she gritted her teeth, locked her arms and pulled the valve. Boom. The orange fire dragon jumped out 5 meters, and the remaining fuel pressure sprayed out like a cannon, burning 10 wolves. The fur and armor melted instantly, the smell of burnt meat rose to the sky, the wolf's howl turned into a scream, and the back row stampeded and fled. Fire tongues licked the cave walls, melting ice into steam, and the vision was filled with a sea of fire. Chu Tian fell to the ground and raised his head. His blood-soaked eyes widened like copper bells, and his body was shocked. This flamethrower? Girl, when did you fucking pretend to be that? I smashed 20 heads, and the fire spurted out and all disappeared. Monster. You are such a monster. His rough voice trembled, the iron pipe fell to the ground, and worship burned his heart. He went from questioning to deification in just a moment. Bai Ning flicked the torch, igniting the oil stains, and the wall of fire rose up to block the wolf. She turned to stare at Muxue, holding the handle of the gun in Bai's hand. Muxue, you saved the entire team for the second time. This fire. A diesel pressure valve? It explodes in sub-zero environments, with a heat value of 2000 degrees. Even predators will have to kneel when they come. Her iron-blooded eyes cracked, and she rarely trembled, and her voice was like seeing a god. So you got up and the third signal was finally broadcast. He hugged his knees and cried loudly. Sister Muxue, the fire you breathed is like hell. The wolves burned into charcoal. I have seen drones in the hacker circle, but they are not so cruel. His hands were frostbitten and cracked with yellow water, but he forgot the pain and his eyes stared in admiration. Yi-chan stopped the blood on his shoulder, pushed up his glasses and examined Muxue's calf injury under the operating light. 2 centimeters of tear, no broken tendons, but your hand speed just now. The timing of the injection was 0.5 seconds wrong. A physiological genius. The vehicle can be modified to improvise weapons. This team can be saved. He murmured, his professional face twisted into shock. Muxue didn't stop, the fire dragon swept away, and the wolf pack ebbed, leaving only the Wolf King howling in the distance, his red eyes flashing in the snow. She dragged Chu Tian up, and Yi-chan gave first aid. A new bandage was wrapped around his arm, and wolfsbane was injected with residual antibiotics. Slight injuries, no broken bones, 80% toxins cleared. Get up and break out. Material losses were heavy. 7 cans left, 6 biscuits, 2 blankets, 1 battery, and the fuel barrel was half empty, but he survived. The wolf temporarily retreated. Muxue looked like a wolf, climbed onto the roof of the car and shouted, "Now upgrade! All-terrain ice and fire mode." She disassembled the heat cycle at the rear of the car, connected the remaining wires of the flame pipe and welded them into the exhaust pipe, and added iron spikes to the grapple tires, improvised with scrap wire and supermarket tape. The engine restarted, roaring and spitting out blue firetail flames. The tires bit the ice like tiger claws, and the body insulation film was patched with residual blankets, increasing the thermal efficiency by 40%. The car lights pierced the snow, and everyone got on the bus. Chu Tian was carried into the back seat. He stared at Muxue's back and gasped. Train chariot of ice and fire. I'm following you, leader. With morale high, Bai Ning clenched his fists. Go south. Protect the dome, wait. The car rushed out of the ice cave. The grappling hook tore through the snow, and the tail flames of the new fire retreated and followed the little wolf, gliding like flying. Suyu's radio residual power flashed, and suddenly the radar beeped. Signal feedback. Multiple convoys are approaching. 50 kilometers southeast, 3 groups. The radar shows heavy armored vehicles. The engine sounds like thunder. I don't know whether it's friend or foe. Predators or rescuers. Suyu's voice was sharp. In everyone's rearview mirrors, black shadows and lights appeared on the snow screen, approaching like a herd of beasts in the storm. The blue firetail flame of the ice and fire chariot tore a bloody trail in the snow curtain. The grappling hook tires bit the ice, making a ghostly roar of metal friction. Every turn was like a beast panting. The air in the car was as stuffy as a steamer, and the insulation film patched by the remaining blankets was filled with condensation. Drops of water hit the dashboard. The fuel gauge needle had slipped to 48% and could not last for 2 hours. In the rearview mirror, black shadows and lights were approaching like will-o'-the-wisps. The roar of 3 motorcade engines covered the wind and snow, and the red dots on the radar flashed like a heartbeat countdown. Suyu hugged the radio tightly, and his frostbitten fingers turned yellow. His voice trembled like dead leaves in the wind. 50 kilometers. No, 40. They are faster than us. Heavy armored vehicles tracked military modifications. The sound of engines. There is radio noise, the voice said. Hand over the supplies and I will spare your life. It's a predator. Damn. Our signal coordinates have been exposed. His eyes widened, fear surged into his mind, and the rumors in the hacker circle flashed back to him. Those convoys specialize in hunting for help signals, like sharks smelling blood. Bai Ning turned the steering wheel fiercely, and the car swayed. The iron thorn ring scraped up ice shards like shrapnel. Her iron-blooded face was tense, and the pistol with an empty magazine was held in the palm of her hand like scrap metal. Calm down. We have the advantage of the terrain. They can't catch up on ice and snow. Muxue, detect weaknesses. Chu Tian, prepare for battle in the backseat. Yichan, check everyone's wounds. Suyu, you trash, the encryption has failed. Her voice was like a whip sucking the air, suppressing the panic in the car. But beads of sweat slid down her forehead, mixed with blood. Muxue knelt in the passenger seat with her tool bag spread out. The torn wound on her calf was bleeding, and her pants were stained bright red. But her eyes were as sharp as a wolf, looking through the car window at the dark shadow behind her. 3 predator vehicles. The leading one is a modified military truck, with tracks crushing ice like a tank, and a rotating machine gun turret on the roof. The middle is a sand dune patrol car, with iron plates on the sides and anti-skid tire chains. The trailing Hummer has welded horns on the front like a rhinoceros. Blueprints raced in her mind. The military truck's oil pipes were exposed and showed signs of thermal cycle failure, snowstorms and freezing cracks. The patrol car's battery compartment was rusted, exposing weaknesses. The Hummer's engine overheated and its exhaust pipe was red and hot. Weak points. The oil pipe on the left side of the military truck, the patrol car battery, and the Hummer exhaust. Chu Tian, go around in a circle and hit the patrol car battery at close range. I will blow out the flames. Her voice was as calm as stagnant water, but there was murderous intent hidden in it. Her hand had already touched the valve of the flame pipe. Chu Tian was half leaning on the back seat. His strong body was stained with blood on the iron pipe. His upper arm was stabbed in burning pain, and the wolf poison in his calf caused phantoms to flicker at the edge of his vision. It was as if he could see the red eyes of the Wolf King again in the snow. But he gritted his teeth, grabbed the iron pipe and gasped. I'll smash their gas tanks. Muxue Shanche, give me a chance. Frost fell from his beard, and his eyes were as fanatical as a believer. The fire dragon's spray just now turned him from a warrior to a fanatical believer. Yichan was unpacking the medical kit in the backseat, and the last piece of gauze was wrapped around Suyu's frostbite. He pushed up his glasses with a calm face, his hands shaking slightly. The antibiotics have been cleared, and the risk of infection for the whole team is 90%. Chu Tian, the body temperature is 40 degrees, and the hallucinations are getting worse. You just murmured, the Wolf King is still alive. Suyu, your hands are yellow and pus-filled, cutting off the nerve endings and causing pain, but Wait, there are traces of needle holes on the edge of your wound. His voice was as low as judgment, and the air suddenly froze. Suyu's face turned pale and he huddled up. I was bitten by a wolf. Dr. Yi, don't make random guesses. The snowy field ahead was open, and 3 predators were intercepting them. Military trucks were lying across the road, their tracks dug deep grooves, and patrol cars and Humvees were outflanking them. The convoy was forced to a halt, the blue flames extinguished, and the inside of the car was completely silent, with only the wind and snow beating against the windows like ghost hands. The leader of the plunderers jumped down from the military car. He was as tall and thin as a bamboo pole, with scars on his face like a centipede. He held a submachine gun and was followed by a dozen hungry ghosts. His clothes were ragged and his eyes were green and thirsty. He dragged out a corpse, a half-frozen woman, with a bullet hole in her chest and an empty belly. Look, this is the engineer from the last rescue convoy. Isn't it beautiful? They refused to hand over, so we skinned her alive and ate her flesh to survive. In the apocalypse, human flesh is no worse than a wolf. Give us the fuel and you will live. If you don't give it, the whole family will be reunited. The convoy approached 20 kilometers, and the Predator radio blared in the wind and snow. The ice and fire clown car ahead. Do you hear that? We are the Iron Alliance. I heard that you have shelter coordinates. Hand over the fuel, food, and women. Otherwise, you will be crushed to pieces. The leading army's horn roared, and the car lights were locked like the eyes of an animal. Bai Ning returned to the channel and sneered. Iron-blooded? A bunch of shit-eating bugs. Get away, don't give us a grain of rice. She accelerated and sprinted, but the fuel gauge needle trembled to 45%, the engine wheezed more heavily, and the grappling hook tires began to slip. Ice cracks loomed under the snow, a terrain trap. The body was smashed on the snow, the intestines were frozen into strips of ice, and the smell of blood was overwhelming. The stomachs of everyone in the car were churning. Suyu spat out the biscuit crumbs and cried. They eat people. We only have 1.5 days of food left. How can we survive? Chu Tian's iron pipes creaked in his grip, and his eyes burst with bloodshot eyes. Beasts! I'll kill the leader. Bai Ning's gun clicked and he gritted his teeth. Talk. Delay time. Muxue takes action. The leader approached 5 meters away with a grim smile, pointing his gun at the car window. Woman, get out of the car first. Let me check the goods. The coordinates of the shelter dome are left behind by the military. Our alliance has 50 vehicles. Join us and be my human toilet. His men laughed loudly, showing their yellow teeth. Some people had touched their crotches, and they were greedy like hungry wolves staring at blankets and cans. The eyes of the corpses in the snow are still open, reflecting despair. Humanity collapses in the cold and hunger. The Predator's car is covered with human bone necklaces, and the freeze-dried corpses are next to the engine. The worldview is expanding like a black hole. Not only wolves but humans have become the most vicious beasts. Muxue's heart felt like an ice cave. Her mother's body flashed in her mind, but the murderous intention came over her. She whispered, Bai Ning, open the door to talk. I will go out to investigate. Chu Tian, go around from the back door and smash the battery of the patrol car. Bai Ning nodded and the car door creaked open. The leader's eyes lit up and he stared at the bloodstains on Muxue's calf and the tool bag. Engineer? Good product. Take off your clothes and check if there are any hidden weapons. He stretched out his hand to grab it. His men surrounded him and pressed the muzzle against the car door. Desire is extremely suppressed. Chu Tian hurts his leg and drags himself. He sees the Wolf King in his hallucination. He roars and rushes out of the back door. He crawls 10 meters in the snow. The iron pipe hits the battery compartment of the patrol car like a ghost kung. The rusty iron cover exploded, sparks flew, wires snapped, and the patrol car engine screamed and stalled. The driver screamed. The battery has exploded. Boss, there is a sneak attack. The looters were in a mess, and the boss turned around and swept the snow with his gun. Muxue took advantage of the chaos and jumped out. The flamethrower was hidden around her waist. She pretended to kneel down and beg for mercy. Don't kill me. I'll give you the fuel. Let's take a detour. But her fingers secretly pressed the valve, and orange tongues of fire sprang out, directly burning the oil pipe on the left side of the military truck. Boom! The oil pipe burst, the diesel fountain exploded when it met the snow. The fireball engulfed the front wheel of the military truck. The driver screamed and burned into flames, and the car body tilted and hit the snow pit. The leader glared like a dead fish and his scarred face twisted. Flamethrower! This bitch has fire. Shoot! Hit her with the Hummer. But the Hummer's exhaust overheated. Chutian was already close. The iron pipe penetrated the exhaust pipe. The engine exploded like thunder, debris flew, and the tire blew out and rolled over. Side effects broke out. Bai Ning leaned out of the car window, her iron-blooded face split in shock. Muxue, are you burning the fuel pipe? Diesel spontaneously ignites at -50 degrees. The pressure valve is perfect. Chutian smashed the exhaust. You are injured like this so fast. These two monsters, even 50 predators are kneeling. Her voice trembled, veins burst out in the hand holding the empty gun. From despair to ecstasy. Suyu was paralyzed in front of the radio, his hands were numb from frostbite, and his eyes were staring straight ahead. Sister Muxue. The second blast of hellfire. The patrol car's battery was completely destroyed after being smashed. And the Hummer imploded. I have seen hackers, viruses, this is physical black. We won. He laughed wildly and cried, worshipping like fire. Yichun checked Suyu's needle eye injury and quietly injected the residual painkiller. Was the needle eye a predator spy mark? Suyu's eyes averted, but he lowered his voice. Secret treatment, the source of the infection was cleared. Mushua's hand speed, detection and weapons, the physiological limit was broken again. This team has expanded the world. His professional face was twisted with admiration, and his calmness collapsed. Chutian crawled back covered in blood, with meat residue hanging on the iron pipe. He was panting like an ox and stared at Muxue. God! The Wolf King and my hallucination scared away. You burst out fire, I will smash the pipe, and the iron-blooded alliance will become iron slag. I will follow you and smash through the Doomsday. His thick voice trembled, his strong body knelt in the snow, and he vowed to die and become a god. The leader, Junka, retreated in the sea of fire, leaving the remaining Humvee soldiers fleeing. He shouted, "Retreat! This woman is a devil. The Alliance will remember the ice train." But the fuel crisis was overwhelming. The tank had 39% fuel left, which was not enough to last 100 kilometers. Bai Ning glanced at the pile of corpses, the human bone necklace flickering, and she gritted her teeth. Detour to the sandy area. There is a shortcut to the southeast shelter dome, which saves half the fuel, but there is a risk of sandstorms. Suyu scanned the weather. Muxue got into the car. Her tool bag was stained with blood. She sewed up new scratches, her eyes like a wolf. In the sand area, the heat cycle is upgraded, and the grappling hook is replaced with a sand claw. The predators are weak, but the resources are bad, we are strong. The car restarted, and the blue firetail flame ignited again, bypassing the pile of corpses in the sea of fire, and ran towards the edge of the sandstorm. The blue firetail flame struggled like a dying beast at the junction of snow and sand. The grappling hook tires bit into the yellow sand, making a grinding scream. Every meter forward was like tearing apart the gate of hell. The temperature inside the car rose sharply, and the water droplets on the insulation film evaporated instantly, turning into heat mist. The red light on the dashboard flashed, and the fuel gauge needle was stuck at 39%, which could not last 100 kilometers. In the rearview mirror, sand and dust rolled like giant waves of blood-yellow color, and the faint roar of an engine approached, the remains of the iron-blooded alliance. The black shadows of reinforcements behind the charred wreckage of 3 vehicles had merged into more than a dozen red lights, and the radar was like a heart spasm. Suyu huddled in front of the radio. His frostbitten hands turned yellow and dried into black scabs, and the needle marks were faintly hot. His fingers trembled as he scanned channels, and his voice sounded like air leaking. Sandstorm. The temperature is 58 degrees. The Marauder reinforcement signal is confirmed. 50 vehicles. They are gathering behind the sand dunes. Encrypted conversation. Attack the ice train at night, grab the engineers and fuel, capture the women alive. We are exposed, all exposed. His eyes were swollen like walnuts, his face was twisted with fear, and the sting of needles echoed in his mind. Chen's secret injection, pain relief or poison. But he didn't dare to say it. The biscuit crumbs he spit out were still stuck to the corners of his clothes, and his throat was like sandpaper from hunger and thirst. Bai Ning stepped on the accelerator, the car bumped like a drunkard. The iron spikes scratched the sofa and sparked. Sweat poured down her iron face, and she threw the pistol with an empty magazine into the back seat. Water. Who has water? The last half bottle in the trunk has evaporated. The air in the car was like a furnace. 2 blankets had been baked into charred cloth, 6 compressed biscuits were broken into sand, and 7 cans rolled down and steamed under the feet. The team's eyes were empty, and despair was swallowed up like a sandstorm. Chu Tian's calf hallucinations of wolf poison intensified, and his body temperature was 40 degrees Celsius, muttering, "The Wolf King is crawling in the sand." Yichan pushed up his glasses and removed the last battery with trembling hands. The medical box was as empty as a tomb. Muxue's calf blood scab cracked, and the toolkit was deformed by hot melt. The snow curtain ahead is gradually turning yellow, sand and dust are looming, and the sound of the wind has turned into a ghostly howl. Suyu's radar beeped. The sandstorm has escalated. The remnants of the marauders are following, and the Alliance reinforcement signal is coming out. They call in 50 vehicles and the pursuit begins. The engine roared and black shadows surged in the sandstorm. Chu Tianzhuang's body was paralyzed in the back seat. The iron pipe was bloody. His arms were on fire, and his calves were swollen like elephant legs. In the hallucination, the sand waves turned into wolves with red eyes, but he gasped and held himself up. "Lie down. I'm going to teach you close combat. Just hit the exhaust pipe. Do you know how to do it?" "Suyu, you hacker waste, you can't hit the leader on the head with an iron pipe." He grabbed Suyu's collar and pulled it up, then handed the iron pipe over. His eyes were full of enthusiasm, but the heat wave made him stagger. Sweat and blood dripped onto the sandy floor, leaving scorch marks. Suyu was so scared that he peed his pants. The sting of the needle was like a needle prick. "Brother Chu, I can't smash it. My hand is rotten. I cracked the raiders' night attack," they said. "Engineer Muxue is worth 10 barrels of oil and will be sold alive to the Alliance." The team was dead silent. Bai Ning's gun clicked and he gritted his teeth. "Night attack? Okay, save fuel and fight at night. Muxue, adapt to the equipment in the sand area now. Otherwise we will die of thirst in the sand like those corpses." Muxue knelt on the passenger side, sweat like blood washing down the laceration on her calf. A blueprint burned in her mind. The hot sand is 60 degrees, water vapor evaporates, and the metal on the roof condenses when it cools. The tool bag was deformed by heat. She tore off the fragments of the insulation film, gritted her teeth and pried open the ventilation compartment on the roof of the car, connected the battery to the inverter coil, and welded the condensation net with the iron barbed ring fragments. Condenser. The roof net captures sandstorm water vapor, and the cooling condensate returns to the water tank. The grappling hooks are replaced with sand claws, and the tires are prevented from being buried in the sand. Her voice was as calm as the whisper of death, but her fingers were blistered. The tools were clanging with molten iron, and sparks were flying in the hot fog inside the car like doomsday fireworks. The limit of restraint. The car body sank, the sand waves swallowed half a meter of the tire, the engine gasped, and the fuel slipped by 38%. Suyu screamed. "Buried in the sand. The Predator reconnaissance vehicle is approaching, 2 light dune vehicles, machine guns are testing." In the yellow sand in the rearview mirror, 2 reconnaissance vehicles jumped out like scorpions. The machine guns on the roof flamed out. Bullets rained down on the iron spike ring at the rear of the car. Sparks exploded, and the blue firetail flames broke off. Chu Tian roared at the back window, and the iron pipe was thrown and hit the axle of a car, but the heat wave made him fall to the ground and twitched. "Hot! The Wolf King bites the leg." Bai Ning turned sharply and the car rolled over the edge of the sand dune. The team crashed into a ball, the can rolled out of the sand, and the food was reduced by half. Yichan rescued Chu Tian, but the remaining medicine was empty. Heat stroke. Body temperature is 41. Permanent brain damage. "Muxue, hurry up, we can't hold on. We are finished, the water is gone. We will die of thirst before we die from the heat." Suyu broke down and cried, hugging his knees and shaking his head. I sent the signal and now 50 cars are coming to eat human flesh. I deserve to die. Sister Bai Ning, throw me out of the car to atone for my sins. His voice trembled like sand in the wind, his eyes begged, and the dull pain in the needle made him suspect that he was a spy, the mark of a predator? Yi Chen's eyes swept over like a knife and his calm face cracked. Suyu, shut up. It's 90% infected. Your yellow water has dried up but your nerves are necrotic. Your pain is gone and you're wasting oxygen. Bai Ning, water ration. Half a cup per person per day, don't waste a drop. Chu Tian, you're a sign of heat stroke, lie down. Muxue welded the last stitch. The condensation net spread out on the roof like silver wings. She pressed the valve, and the hot exhaust from the engine reversed the cold cycle buzz. Mist beaded on the roof net, the manifold ticked, and the water tank dinged half a liter of clear liquid. Water vapor collection. 1 liter per hour. Weld the sand claws, grab the sand and rush forward. She yanked the tire cover, replaced the iron spike ring with the hooked teeth of the sand claws. The car body shook, bit the sand and rushed out, shaking off the sand pit. The 2 reconnaissance vehicles were stunned and the driver stared. Water. Water condensation in the sandstorm? This monster car. The machine gun fired randomly, but Muxue buckled the flamethrower to suppress the remaining pressure, and the blue fire whipped up the sand. The steaming heat wave backfired on the reconnaissance vehicle's engine. One overheated and exploded, and the fragments flew upside down like shrapnel. The leader's remnant soldiers rushed in via radio, hoarse as a ghost. Ice and fire, bitch. A sandstorm hits at night, you will die of thirst. Engineers, get out of the car, the Alliance will reward you as a queen. Otherwise you will be buried alive in the sand. Reconnaissance vehicles surrounded the car, machine guns fired at the door, bullet holes were like honeycombs, and the broken glass in the car scratched Suyu's face, blood mixed with sweat. Bai Ning held her head. Muxue, can you do it? The tools have melted and our humanity is gone. The predators eat people. And we are just as rotten as if we died of thirst. Her iron blood cracked, her voice was crying, her empty gun trembled, and despair was like a sandstorm. The side contrast burst. Bai Ning bounced from the driver's seat, her iron-blooded face cracked with sweat and ecstatic, her eyes widened as if she had seen a god. Muxue, are you condensing water? 60-degree sandstorm water vapor network. Reverse heat cycle magic. Chu Tian can still rush while lying down. Our monster car is invincible. This water. Life-saving fairy dew. Her voice trembled like a prayer. She grabbed a water pipe and took a gulp. Tears mixed with water fell down, from collapse to fanaticism. Suyu's face was blurred with blood, and the pain of the needle was forgotten. He rushed to the radio, cracked and plundered the channel and went limp. Sister Muxue, the condenser is a black technology. I have seen AI hackers. This is a physical god. One of the reconnaissance vehicles exploded, and the other one escaped. They were so scared that they peed. Report to the Alliance, the ice train has a water source, engineer witch. The night attack plan was messed up. We won half the battle. He laughed wildly, worshipping like a sandstorm burning his body, grabbing the water pipe to drink from the frostbitten hands, and his eyes turned to Muxue. Yi Chen injected Chu Tian's last drop of painkiller. His calm face twisted and collapsed. He pushed up his glasses and his hands trembled. The physiological limit has been broken again. Muxue's hands quickly welded the mesh. The blisters did not shake. The condensation efficiency was 70%. The heat stroke was reversed. Chu Tian's body temperature dropped by half a degree. The infection was clear. So your needle eye. I suppressed it, but don't hide it anymore. His voice was low with awe, and the medical box was empty, but his eyes were as bright as stars, from professionalism to worship. Bai Ning distributed the water pipes, each with half a cover, and glanced at Suyu. The night attack information has been declined, but the signal has been exposed. How do you explain the needle eye? Yi Chen said that the source of the infection is clear. But why did the Alliance go straight to us? Suyu's face turned pale and he shrunk. I wolf bite. Hacker swears, he did not betray the team. Yi Chen whispered, temporary pressure. Observe. Muxue's equipment is upgraded, and the team is expanding, but Suyu's foreshadowing. The inner ghost is dangerous. Muxue sewed new marks on the sand claws and whispered. The water is enough, sandstorm training. Chu Tian teach Suyu in close combat. Bai Ning night battle layout. Her eyes were like a wolf, laying the ground for Suyu's suspicion, paving the way for a big crisis, an internal and external attack. Chu Tian twitched and got up, holding the iron pipe on the ground, and the wolf poison hallucination dissipated. He stared at Muxue's strong body kneeling on the snowy sand. Goddess! Condensate water to save my life. The sand claws bite the ground like wolf teeth. Just now I taught you close combat and you teach survival. I swear to smash 50 cars. I will follow you and smash through the sandstorm. With a choked voice, sweat and blood on his beard, he knelt on the sand and kowtowed, and the warrior turned into a madman. The convoy rushed over the sand dunes. The hooked teeth of the sand claws dug deep grooves. The condensation water increased to a liter, and the blue firetail flame turned orange to suit the hot sand. Suyu's radar blared wildly. The sandstorm broke out in full force. The wind speed was 80 meters, and the field of vision was 0. The main force of 50 marauders was attacking from 3 sides. The leader shouted, "Bury the sand and drown the witch." The engine surged, and the yellow sand came like a tsunami. The yellow sand danced wildly like billions of ghosts. The wind speed of 80 meters tore through the condensation net on the roof of the car, emitting a metallic wail. The water droplets collected intermittently, and only half a liter remained. The hooked teeth of the sand claws were buried deep in the sand, spurting out bloody yellow mist at every ditch. The orange tail flame of the engine was swallowed up by the sandstorm. The fuel gauge needle trembled and slid to 36%, which could not last 80 kilometers. The field of vision returned to 0, and in the black and yellow chaos, the leader's grin on the radio echoed like a curse. Which 50 iron-blooded Alliance vehicles obey the order? Surround them on 3 sides, bombard the flanks, bury them in the sand and drown them. Engineers are captured alive. Women are skinned and sold to the dome nobles. Fuel and water sources grab them all. They're thirsty dog corpses in the sand, haha. The red dots on the radar exploded like a swarm. The 50 engines roared into a hellish symphony. The 5 Vanguard modified sand tanks burst out of the sand waves. The homemade rocket launchers on the roofs burned, and the trailing marks of the shells hit the flanks of the convoy. Boom! The first shell grazed the iron spike ring at the rear of the car. The explosion raised a sand pillar 10 meters high. The shockwave caused the car to roll half a circle. The sand claws of the tire nearly came off the hook. The broken glass bullet hole expanded into a honeycomb hole. Hot sand poured into the car and poured like lava. Bai Ning gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles bursting with blood and seeping into the sand. Her iron-blooded face twisted into a ghost of despair, and her manic laughter broke into a roar. Fuck! 5 Vanguard tanks, bazooka locked. Muxue, hold on to the sacred vehicle. Detour around the sand dunes. But the sandstorm had 0 visibility. She turned blindly, the car hit the sand wall. A tooth was broken off in the sand claw, and the fuel evaporated accelerated, 30% to 50%. The team was smashed into a ball of flesh, 4 pieces of compressed biscuits flew away, 5 hot cans hit their feet, and the charred blanket flew away in the wind. Suyu was curled up on the radio pile. His face was covered with bloody scabs and fresh wounds, and the needle pricks were aching like fire. His fingers spasmed to scan the channel, and his voice broke into a cry. 50 cars confirmed. In the middle of the leader's car, 5 rockets were fired in a chain, flanking him. They communicated. No wolf bites. We exposed the water source. Condensed the network flash radar. They yelled, "Witches Narcissus, grab it and sell it for 1,000 pieces of gold!" Exclamation point. Fear overwhelmed him like a sandstorm. He grabbed the water pipe with his black hands and filled it half full. The remaining water evaporated and his thirsty throat felt like a knife. His eyes were begging for mercy. Sister, throw me in for fuel? I was the one who sent the signal. The mole will atone for his sins. The leader taunted through the radio. Hacker trash, you are marked by the eye of the needle in the Alliance. Betray the team and beg for mercy? The sandstorm attacks at night, and I will kill you with thirst. Chu Tian's strong body twitched in the back seat. His legs were swollen and burning due to heat stroke. His iron pipe was holding up with blood and flesh, and the sand waves turned into red eyes due to wolfsbane's hallucination. But he was breathing heavily and grinning. The mole? I'll hit the leader first. I'll drive the co-pilot, and fight hand-to-hand in the rear. He staggered up to the co-pilot, grabbed Bai Ning to switch places, and the iron pipe smashed open the back door. Spring, the hot sand whip drew blood marks on his face. Goddess Muxue taught Sandclaw. I jumped on the enemy car and smashed the wheel axle. 50 cars? Smash it. But the second round of artillery fire hit the flank. The car door honeycomb exploded a big hole. The iron pipe flew away from the hand. Chu Tian was half-length outside the crane. The sandstorm tore off the clothes and pants, and the flesh and blood were mixed, and the calf was swollen and cracked with yellow water mixed with sand. Yi Chen's medical box was empty, and he knelt next to Chu Tian. The residual gauze pressed against the heat injury, and his calm face burst with sweat. Physiological collapse. Chu Tian lost 20% of his blood. Hot sand infection. Suyu's nerve necrosis accelerated. The needle eye poison spread. Bai Ning, stop the car to save people. We can't last 5 minutes. His glasses were broken into pieces, his hands shook like leaves, and the professional shell shattered into fear. The Predator rocket is locked, the condensation network has lost 30%, and the water vapor has evaporated to zero. We are all buried in the sand with thirst, our humanity is rotten, and the fuel has robbed us of our corpses. The team is dead silent. Despair is like a sandstorm swallowing the sky. The leader's radio smile is superimposed. The dog cart has overturned. 5 tanks are on top, shelling the witch's head, skinning and selling the Alliance alive. Hackers, jump out of the car and kneel down to lick and survive. The third rocket hit the roof of the car directly, tearing half of the condensation net. The water tank cut off with only one cover left. The car rolled over on the sand dune. 2 teeth of the sand claws were completely broken, and the orange-red tail flame was almost extinguished. Bai Ning was thrown from the driver's seat. Her head hit the instrument and her face was covered with blood. She climbed up and held an empty gun and yelled, "It's over. The sacred car is buried in the sand, and so is the goddess. Muxue, you have a miracle in condensing water. I can't hold on anymore." 50 ogres. Her iron-blooded tears flowed into the sand, and she hugged her knees tremblingly. She collapsed from mad belief to the useless person, mockingly said to himself, "Leader? I lead the corpse team. The leader of the looters is right. The skin of a woman is worth an oil barrel." Suyu was so scared that he wet his pants with sand and cried, "I sold it. The eye of the needle is a mark. Spare your life." Yi-chan pushed him and said, "Shut up. You will die first if the poison spreads." Desire to suppress the limit. The fourth rocket blasted the chassis, the engine flashed with orange flames, and 34% of the fuel was lost. The lights of the 5 tanks in the center of the sandstorm were locked like the eyes of death. The boss car broke through the sand waves, and the heavy machine gun on the roof fired. Bullets rained through the honeycomb door, and Chu Tian's strong arm tore off half a kilogram of flesh. Chudan shouted from outside the crane, "The Wolf King bites! No, goddess, save me!" He smashed the sand with his iron fist, and the red-eyed sand beast rushed towards him in his hallucination. The Predator tank approached 10 meters away, and the driver put his head over the car and grinned ferociously, spitting. "The witch's car is broken. The water source belongs to me. The women get out of the car and use it as a human toilet, and the engineers strip off tendons and sell the domes." Corpses were hanging from the windows of their cars, and the ugliness of human nature was exposed like a sandstorm, and fuel barrels were swaying as bait. Muxue knelt down on the co-pilot's tool bag. Her fingers were blistered and bloody, and the blood scabs on her calves were ground into mud. The blueprint in her mind was to burn the sandstorm. The ice and fire equipment was activated. Jets of cold mist condense sand into walls, and jets of hot water melt tires. She tore off the insulation film to remove the ash, welded the flame pipe to reverse the cold cycle. The battery was zero, but the engine heat radiator was connected to a temporary coil, and the iron thorn fragments compressed the gas tank. Dual mode of ice and fire. Cold mist spray solidified sand and dust to build walls to block cannons. Hot shot to melt enemy wheels. Sand claws to repair hooks. Her voice was as quiet as a whisper under the sand, but her fingers were welded with sparks, and the blue and orange flames in the hot mist inside the car intertwined with the Doomsday Phoenix. Bai Ning held the steering wheel and laughed wildly. "Come on, you iron-blooded scum. Muxue's magic car. Let's start the night battle." But the fuel slipped at 37%, and the black shadows and lights in the center of the sandstorm were locked like a sea of ghosts. The leader came in with a ferocious smile on the radio. "Which the water source is mine. I will skin you alive and sell you to the Alliance." Buzz. Muxue pulled the valve, and the remaining net on the roof sprayed cold mist like a silver dragon. When it encountered 80-meter hot sand, it instantly condensed into a 3-meter-high ice wall. The fifth rocket smashed into the wall and exploded, and the ice fragments flew upside down. It backfired and the engine of the car in front of the tank was too cold and exploded. The tank driver glared and screamed, "Ice! Sandstorm and ice wall? Which is magic?" The 4 tanks behind them fired randomly, and bullets embedded themselves in the honeycomb of the ice wall. The hot jet from the second valve whips out, the orange molten pillar melts the enemy's tires, the hook-toothed sand claws bite the sand, and the car body rushes out of the pit. The side contrast explodes. Bai Ning's face bounces from despair. His iron-blooded eyes are as round as copper bells. He trembles and grabs the steering wheel to pour water. His voice is choked and he prays, "Muxue! Double spray of ice and fire?" Cold mist condenses sand to build a divine wall. Hot shot, the melting wheel tank collapsed. From burying corpses to being invincible. "You are incredible in 3 seconds. You know God." She cried in ecstasy, holding an empty gun and kowtowed to her seat. She turned from collapse to a fanatical believer and yelled, "Go around Zhuoqiu and jump out of the rear of Chudon Palace." Suyu got up limply in front of the radio, forgetting the pain of the needle, and frantically typing codes to hack into the enemy channel. "Chaos injection. Boss, listen, our tanks have mutinied. The witch hacker virus." The enemy's communication rang out randomly. The predators bombarded a car, and the driver collapsed. "Insider? Hacker waste things turned against water." Suyu laughed wildly and drank blood. "Sister Muxue, the ice and fire magic plus my virus, the divine team is invincible. 50 cars are in chaos, the reconnaissance and escape car reports. The witch builds an ice city, melting the wheel of hell." He worshipped the divine light in his eyes, punched his hands in pain from frostbite, and turned from the inner ghost into a slave. Chu Tian's iron arms held him back from the outside of the crane, his strong body dripping with sweat. He jumped out of the sand with a ferocious smile, smashed his iron fist close to the door of the tank, and boarded the vehicle in hand-to-hand combat. "Goddess Binghua! I smashed the wheel!" He retrieved the iron pipe, smashed the driver's head and brains, and the sand exploded, causing the tank to lose. Controlling the collision with the sand wall, he seized the driver's seat and fired back to bombard the enemy vehicles on the flanks. The roar echoed. 50? I'm behind the passenger car, and I swear to smash them through. Muxue, kill without mercy. The soldier turned from hallucination to madness, kneeling on the sand with blood on his cheeks, kowtowing for a moment, and then turned around to slaughter the beast. Bai Ning took command in a roundabout way, building an ice wall to block the rain of artillery fire, melting the tires of 3 vehicles and paralyzing them in the sand pit. Suyu's virus made the boss channel ghosts cry. Rebellion. Which virus plus ice and fire ghost car? Retreat. But Muxue locked the first car, and the climax was reversed. She compressed the iron sting gas tank and welded the temporary gun barrel, and reversed the bombardment with a mixed blue-orange flame blast. The leader tank of the first tank was hit by a bullet, and the fuel barrels exploded like nuclear fire in the sand. Fragments swept away 10 tanks like a rain of bullets. The remnants of the iron-blooded alliance shrieked and fled. 50 tanks turned around and fled the sandstorm, leaving 5 tanks with wreckage and fuel barrels rolling down the sand, and 20 barrels full of diesel. The team's sand claws bit into the deep ditch and chased wildly, grabbing fuel and filling it up. The watch hands surged by 70%, and the water network repaired and dinged 2 liters. Bai Ning laughed wildly and distributed. Full of fuel. Muxue killed the boss with 1 shot. The scum of humanity collapsed, and the monster car empire. Chu Tian's deputy tank drove back, holding the iron pipe blood flag high. Goddess army smashed through the Doomsday. Suyu cracked the residual frequency. They escaped Bai. Report to the Alliance the ice and fire which is not dead. The fuel is lost. Yi Chan said. Full recovery, physiological limit reached a new high. Muxue sewed new marks on the gun barrel and whispered. The fuel lasted for 1,000 kilometers. The troop training was completed. Southeast dome ahead. Yichun hurriedly wrapped Chutian's arm injury, used an empty box of gauze to press the blood, and his calm face was twisted in awe. Physiological miracle. Muxue's welding speed has broken the limit. The cold mist inverse thermal cycle efficiency is 90%. And the density of sand ice is steel. Chutian's bleeding has stopped, and the infection has been frozen. Suyu, the poison is suppressed, but your luck is all Muxue. He pushed the broken mirror with a steady hand, resurrected the medical undead. His eyes were as bright as seeing a god, and turned to worship from the trial. The black and red thunderclouds slowly opened like the door of doom, rolling and swallowing the trailing edge of the sandstorm in layers. The fire rain suddenly poured down like molten lead, sizzling onto the sand. Every drop of red and black liquid that hit the ground exploded into a corrosion pit 3 inches deep. The hot steam mixed with the sour smell penetrated the nose. A flock of mutated firebirds screamed like thousands of ghosts crying together. Hundreds of them with a wingspan of 10 meters swooped down to lock onto the convoy with iron beaks and hooks. Their red eyes flashed like hell lanterns. The first wave of 10 leading birds tore through the air. Their iron wings fanned the wind to lower the trajectory of the fire rain, heading towards the remaining edges of the condensation net on the roof of the car. Suyu's scream still echoed in the carriage. His black-scabbed hands were tapping the radio wildly. The poison in the needles hurt like fire needles pricking again. His pants were wet with mortar and his legs were cold. A flock of 300 birds. The wings are made of hard steel plates, pecking through the iron shell, and the car body is rotten by fire and rain. Surrounded by red dots on the radar, the dome is guarded by outposts. Even 70% of the fuel can't fly. His eyes turned from the ecstasy of the sandstorm back to the abyss of fear. He hugged his head and huddled beside the water pipe. The remaining water in his ration was half evaporated. His throat was cracked and he was coughing up blood. My virus saves the sandstorm and the bird has no channel. Spare your life, sisters. The blood on Bai Ning's pale face was not dry. She gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles bursting and new blood seeping into the sand and mud. Her iron-blooded eyes stared into the thunder clouds, and her voice broke into a low roar of despair. I can't stop it. The Firebird has iron wings, the acid rain melts the car, the magic car, the ice and fire mode. The cold mist and the hot shot are useless. The bird flies into the sky. The rain is invisible. She stepped on the accelerator, an orange-red tail flames flew like sand for 80 kilometers. However, the first bird's claw hook on the roof tore open new weld marks on the condensation network. Red and black fire rained down the hole and poured into the car like lava. It was so hot that the dashboard was filled with molten foam. The fuel meter needle trembled and slipped by 60%. The water tank dinged and cut off, leaving half a liter. The team screamed and smashed into a ball of flesh. Only 3.5 pieces of the compressed biscuits were scattered. 4 hot cans were smashed on the feet, causing blisters. The sour smell in the hot mist choked the lungs like knives. Chutian's deputy tank was driving side by side. His strong body was dripping with blood and sweat, and the iron pipe and blood flag were held high. However, the fire rain hit the tank shell and corroded the iron skin. The holes expanded like honeycombs. He roared and smashed open the engine hood to drain water. Firebird! I smashed the beak with my iron fist. He jumped out of the driver's seat and swung his iron arm to block the swooping bird's head. His brain was blasted with sand, but the claw hook tore off 0.5 kilogram of his shoulder flesh. The fresh wounds were yellow and mixed with acid. The rain rotted and foamed, and the residual poison of heat stroke rekindled and his legs were swollen like fire. He staggered back to the car, his evil smile breaking into gasps. Goddess! The birds are smashed without wheels and the acid rain eats the meat. The shell of the subtank is 30% rotten, and it cannot support the second wave of birds. Blood clots dripped from his beard, and his eyes dimmed from a sand-war-mad god to a tired soldier. The iron pipe supported his knees and knelt on the sand seat, and the hallucinatory red-eyed bird shadows overlapped the wolves. Yichen's medical box was empty. He knelt down to press Chu Tian's shoulder injury. The remaining gauze turned into mud and was useless. His calm face was distorted with sweat and blood. The broken glasses reflected the red light of the fire rain. Third-degree burn, full corrosion layer. Chu Tian's shoulder infection spread. Acid poison entered the blood for 5 minutes. Septicemia. Su Yu's eye blister was swollen, the poison rekindled, and nerve necrosis accelerated. Bai Ning's head injury became inflamed. Mu Snow's fingers were scalded and blistered, bleeding and festering. His hands shook like leaves as he grasped the empty needle, and his professional shell shattered into pieces. He begged with a choked voice. Stop the car to heal the injury. Huoyu has no antibiotics, only half a liter of food and water for 2 days, and the infection is all dead. The predators exchanged fuel for life, and now bird rain eats corpses. The team was in a dead silence. The fire rain knocked on the car like 10,000 hammers, and the thunder rumbled and shook the soul. Muxue knelt down on the broken tool bag, soaked her fingers and soaked them with blood and mixed them with sand and mud. She tore off the insulation film inside the car, and welded the anti-corrosion coating with the remaining ash. She tried to make a blue-orange flame from the compressed air tank with pieces of iron thorns, but the battery was 0 and the engine's heat exhaust coil was overloaded and buzzed intermittently. Acid rain corrodes the iron sheet at 0 point per minute. 5 millimeters. The magic car shell lasts for half an hour. The coating needs to be diluted with resin fuel, and 70% of the fuel cannot be burned. Her voice was as low as thunder under the sand, and the blueprint in her mind was burning with fire. The anti-corrosion spray was reversed, but the residual pressure of the gas tank was only 1 shot, and there was no ice and fire after the spray. Her face was covered in blood from welding sparks. The potholes in the car body expanded. The hot fog choked her nose, and her legs were scabbed with blood, sand, mud, and yellow water flowing. The convoy blindly entered the flood and fire belt, and the terrain suddenly dropped into a muddy torrent. The red and black acidic water was 2 meters deep and surged like a river of blood. The waves carried corpses floating and floating, a mixture of humans and animals. Mutated fish with silver scales and red eyes scurried out of the water, and their saw-toothed mouths gnawed at the sand claws on the bottom of the car. Boom! The flood peak hit the car and turned the car sideways half a circle. Water filled the honeycomb door hole like thousands of ants gnawing at the bones, and the smell of sour and rotten iron rose to the sky. Bai Ning turned the steering wheel wildly, and the water pressure squeezed the fuel pipe to leak slightly, and 38% of it slipped. She shed tears of iron, blood, and fire and said sarcastically to herself, "The dome? I lead the corpse to swim in the river." The sacred car was buried in the flood, and the goddess also rotted. Su Yu was so frightened that he hugged the radio and cried and scanned the frequency. Weak residual frequency news. Weather forecast: fire rain will last for 72 hours, flood peaks will rise 5 meters, birds' nests will be densely packed, and there will be no road for 500 kilometers in the dome. His black scabbed fingers spasmed, needle holes were swollen, and his vision was blurred. He was reduced from a virus hero to a waste begging for his life. The radar suddenly blared, and the flood and fire rain zone at the end of the sandstorm was covered with thunderclouds. The black and red clouds rolled like the door of doom. A flock of mutated birds hovered with red eyes flashing, with wingspans of 10 meters and iron beaks and hooks. They screamed through the sandstorm. Cry GA! Hundreds of them swooped down to lock onto the convoy, and fire rain dripped down and the sand filled the molten pit. Su Yu screamed. Flock of birds! Mutated firebirds, flood zone guards, pecked through the steel plate. Bai Ning turned pale. The dome outpost, even if it is full of fuel, can't stop it. Chu Tian, the deputy tank's water oar, made a homemade iron pipe to row through the flood. He jumped out and smashed the fish's head, and his iron fist exploded into brain water. However, the fish's legs were swollen, and the saw teeth tore the flesh half an inch deep. The yellow blood was dyed red. Fish demon! I smashed my mouth from behind. The pressure was like a torrent of fire, and the convoy was sliding in a torrent of fire. A second wave of 50 birds swooped down, and the iron beaks pecked at the roof and the rotten hole expanded. The water vapor evaporated to 0, and the condensation network was completely destroyed. Bai Ning shook out the old map, and the edge of the paper was burnt black by the fire and rain. She pointed to the vague clues in the southeast. The dome mark 500 kilometers passing through the fire and rain. There is an old signal tower, but the map is half rotten, and there is no way to the flood fish bird's nest. Her voice trembled from iron-blooded to useless, and she hugged her knees and whispered, "Leader? Lead the death team. The bodies of family members are frozen, and my sister is burned to ashes in the fire and rain. Share. The past was worth shit." Morale was as low as the stagnant water at the bottom of the flood. "So you broke the silence first and cried out. I hacked the military frequency before the end of the world, and the climate weapon was out of control. My family starved to death on the streets, and I sold the needle holes for food. It is the nature of the inner ghost." His eyes begged for mercy and glanced at Muxue, and his face was distorted by the poisonous pain of the needle holes. Chu Tian gasped heavily and continued, "I am a soldier in the front. My legs were broken by thunder in the ice storm, and my comrades gnawed on the frozen corpses. I vowed to destroy the Doomsday, but now the fish is chewed up." He smashed the fish shadow under the car with the iron pipe, and blood spurted out. Yi Chan pushed up the broken edge of the mirror. "On the last day of medical school, the school was flooded, and the master taught me how to bind the corpses. No medicine can save you." Bai Ning burst into tears and said, "Security team, before the robbery, I saw the nobles fleeing the dome, and the poor people piled up corpses. Muxue, your engineering miracle sand war. Now the sacred car is rotting, and your house is frozen with corpses." Yi Chen treated him all day long. He tore off his clothes and wrapped them in suyu. He injected intraocular pressure with acid poison, and the remaining cloth turned into yellow mud, which was ineffective. His calmness collapsed and he shouted, "Full infection, burns and septicemia, fish bites, half dead in 2 days without medicine. Food is strictly controlled. Half a biscuit per person and a spoonful canned soup. Half water ration, rotting to death from thirst, physiological limit broken." He pushed Chu Tian's injured leg away. Yellow pus spewed out. His eyes were as desperate as seeing a pile of corpses. "My doctor can't save him. The dome is far away in dreams. Human nature is rotten and cannibalistic." Muxue lowered her head to weld the remaining anti-corrosion paint. Her fingers were bloody, and her heart was burning with fire and rain. Her family's family was crushed by a tall building and the glass hole was broken, and now her team's family is corrupt. She tore out the fuel pipe and sprayed the first layer of resin. The car body was slowly rotting, but the gas tank was empty. Her voice was dead. "The coating lasts for 2 hours, and the food lasts for 2 days and half a liter of water. Strict control. The sharing is over, hold on." But the third wave of hundreds of birds screamed, approaching. The iron wings covered the sky and the rain of fire intensified, and the silver scales of fish broke through the waves and pounced on the bottom of the car. Bai Ning's words were like a broken kite floating in the roar of the fire rain. A blood-red lightning cracked open in the belly of the thunder cloud, crashing down on the flood peak, splashing 10 meters of acid waves, and the red and black rot rushed towards the convoy like thousands of ants gnawing at the bones. The outline of the giant nest towered majestically on the other side of the torrent. The rotten iron bones were like the backbone of a giant beast. The vines were entangled and dripping with bird droppings. The heart of the nest was faintly pulsing with red light. The cry for help came intermittently into Suyu's radio. "Save dome coordinates. Nest King. Hurry." But the sound was mixed with low wolf howls, and merged with bird screams into a strange chorus. Schools of silver-scaled fish boiled and leaped on the flood surface. The shadows of iron-winged birds covered the sky and a third wave of hundreds of birds swooped down. The honeycomb holes in the car roof were penetrated by iron beaks and expanded, and the acid mist choked the lungs like fire. Suddenly, a wave of corpses rolled in from the lower reaches of the flood peak, not just fish, but countless mutated wolf and bird corpses floating and floating. Iron wing bones sprouted from the rotting wolf body, red eyes rekindled and hook claws stirred the waves, and hundreds of corpse-tide-level monsters crashed through the waves like hell's cavalry, heading straight for the broken flank of the convoy. They are a fusion of wolf wings, wolf mouths spraying acid mist, bird wings fanning the rotting wind. Each head is 3 meters long, rotten flesh dripping with molten sand, and the sound of sharp teeth gnawing at the iron shell is like the sound of tens of thousands of saws pulling together. The first winged wolf collided with the auxiliary tank, and the iron pipe of the water paddle broke. Chu Tian's iron fist hit the wolf's brain, but black blood and rotten blood burst back. His shoulder was injured and yellow pus spattered, and his leg was swollen and the rotten blisters burst from the fish bite. His rough roar turned into a howl of pain. Corpse wolf bird. Rotten blood has entered. Meat, my iron pipe is rotten. I can't hold it up. He staggered and knelt on the sand, blood clots mixed with acid dripping from his beard. His eyes completely collapsed from a mad god to a desperate soldier. The iron pipe supported his knees and trembled. The goddesses are all dead, and the tide of corpses is endless. Suyu hugged the radio and huddled next to the water pipe. The black scab was swollen and the vision blurred into blood mist. He screamed and swept the frequency. His voice broke into a cry and begged for his life. 500 corpses. Fusion of wolves and birds. Acid blood rots the car at 1 millimeter per second. The flood peak rises 3 meters and floods the engine. Nest rescue trap. Dome key deceives corpses. His pants are wet with mortar. His sticky legs were bone-chilling. Half a liter of remaining water had evaporated. His throat was cracked and he was coughing up blood. His eyes turned to Muxue begging for mercy. Sister. Forgive me, my virus saved the sandstorm, but now my corpse is alive. The former hacker hero turned into a waste, banging his head against the wall of a car and laughing at himself. Selling needles in exchange for food, the Doomsday army is worth shit. Yi-chan knelt down to press Chu Tian's injured leg. The remaining cloth turned into yellow mud and was ineffective. Yellow pus and acid blood sprayed on the edges of his glasses. His calm face twisted into a collapsed roar. Full septicemia. The corpse wolf acid entered the blood vessels and dissolved the nerves in 3 minutes. The bones in Chu Tian's leg were rotten. Suyu's poison accelerated necrosis, Bai Ning's cephalitis enlarged the brain, and Muxue's finger became purulent and was on the verge of amputation. His hand shook as he grabbed the empty syringe, tears flowed down his face, his professional shell shattered and he choked. Medical undead, rotten without any medicine, only half a cake of soup to last for a day and a half, and will die of thirst first. Stop to build a website? A wave of zombies eat the pile of corpses. He pushed Chu Tian's injured leg away, and the rotten flesh rolled up to reveal the bones. His roar was like a swan song in the deathly silence of the team. Bai Ning held the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles bursting with blood and tears streaming down her face. Her face was pale, her head was inflamed and swollen, and there were black spots on the edges of her vision. She hit the ground with an empty gun and taunted herself. Leader? Lead the corpse to swim in the river. The first layer of anti-corrosion on the sacred car nourishes and slows down decay, but the corpse wolf gnaws at the chassis. The fuel is slipping by 35%. And the dome is a dream for 500 kilometers. She turned the throttle sharply, and the orange-red tail flames rushed wildly for 60 kilometers, but the flood peak squeezed the car and rolled over the waves. The acid water filled the door hole like thousands of ants eating bones, and the molten fuel gauge needle of the instrument trembled by 32%. She hugged her knees and roared, turning from iron-blooded to useless. Mushua's magical skills in sand fighting are miraculous, but now his fingers are rotten and the goddess is rotten. My family and nobles fled to the dome, and I am a pile of corpses. End of sharing, they are all rotten. The pressure was like a torrent of fire corpses pressing down on them. The convoy was surrounded by a wave of wolf corpses while the convoy was sliding. The iron wings fanned the rotting wind to suppress the fire rain. The hook claws tore the auxiliary tank shell and expanded the honeycomb by 50%. The blood in the brain was dyed red. Muxue knelt down with a broken tool bag. Her fingers were blistered and cracked. The flesh was blurred and pus-filled, and yellow water was flowing. Her calves were scabbed with blood. Sand and mud were rotting and stinging like fire. The flames from the welding fire reflected on her bloody face, and the blueprint in her mind was burned. 3 desperate situations. The anti-corrosion-coated gas tank was left empty for 2 hours, and the tide of corpses' acid blood dissolves iron. The nest may be asking for help, but the key may be the bird king's trap. The team is corrupt like the frozen corpse of the family. The mother's flattened glass in the high-rise building penetrates the father's blood and freezes. Her heart is twisted, and the psychological game is like a thunder cloud. Burning fuel, the second coat of resin? Wasting half an hour without ice and fire. A dead end. Breaking into the nest to save people and expand the team? The corpse, wolf, and bird king are all destroyed in a double attack. And the family will have to do it again. Abandon the car and escape? The fish gnawed their corpses and died of thirst without fuel. But the dome is 500 kilometers long, and the shelter clue map is half rotten. It must be reversed resourcefulness rather than brute force, using the corpse tied to eat itself, the humans in the nest, and the afterimage survivors on the roadside. Her low voice burst out like thunder. It's not bad. Chu Tian, the iron pipes and water ores are broken. Let's team up to set a trap. The corpse wolf will hit itself at the bend of the flood peak. Bai Ning, the survivor of the ruin building in the northeast of the map, recruits and expands the team to support medical communications. Yichan, the shroud, builds a temporary station to suppress the rotten blood. Suyu, the horror nest, frequently builds the network connection dome. 20 barrels of fuel are integrated without leakage. Food and water are strictly controlled and expanded to 10 people to last for 3 days. Establish the power of the convoy. The killing begins. Her words were like icy blades cutting through the dead silence. Chu Tuncheguan raised his head sharply while kneeling on his knees, his beard trembling with blood and sweat, and his rough breath broke into a low roar of shock. Goddess, monster, are you setting a trap with rotten fingers? I'm following orders with an iron fist. His eyes turned from a dim remnant to a mad god. Yellow pus was dripping from his shoulder injury, but he jumped out of the subtank with a ferocious smile. His iron arm swung his pipe to hit the Hongfeng rock to test the water flow, and hallucinated wolves and birds overlapped into excited prey. Suyu's eyes were swollen and sore with black scabs, and his vision was blurred. He hugged the radio and cried, worshipping and screaming. God! The inner ghost obeys the command and terrorizes the nest. The virus builds a network. Spare your life. His fingers spasmed and he knocked wildly on the channel. The former begging waste knelt down to worship. His pants were wet with mortar and he forgot about the cold. Yichan pushed the shattered edge of the mirror. His hand shook and pressed Chu Tian's wound. His calm face was twisted and shocked as the yellow pus spattered, and the glasses reflected the blueprint of Muxue's bloody face. Genius? The god of welding and anti-corrosion, now he is playing against the sky? The medical station obeyed the order, tore off the corpse and wrapped it in a shroud to suppress the sepsis. He choked and turned his professional torch, grabbing the residual insulation film in the car and wrapping it in Suyu's needle eye. His eyes ignited with hope from the undead. Bai Ning hugged her knees and held the gun in a useless posture. Her knuckles were bloody and the black spots in her field of vision had subsided. She stared at Muxue with iron-blooded eyes, and her voice trembled from a low roar to ecstasy. Leader of the goddess, I am recruiting to expand the team. The map is half of the northeastern part of the map. The corpses of the nobles and the poor kill and integrate. She stepped on the accelerator, and the car body was filled with acid water and turned hard. An orange tail flame sprayed for 60 kilometers. Muxue's psychology is like fire and rain making steel. The pain in the finger is sacrificed in the game. The second layer of resin burns half a barrel of fuel, and the trap to explode the corpse requires the risk of breaking a leg behind the Chutian palace. The ugly human nature is recruited to plunder the inner ghost to lurk, but the rudimentary power is reversed. The fuel, food and water are 3 times, and the dome has a road of 500 kilometers. She tore off the slightly leaking fuel pipe and sprayed the second coat of resin wildly, slowing the car body's corrosion by half. Welding the iron pipe with blue and orange residual flames, she handed the explosive package to Chu Tian. The peak at the curve behind the palace, the iron pipe caused the corpse wolf to hit the rock, explode and eat itself. Even if the finger is broken, it can survive. Chu Tian took the blood bag, clenched his iron fist and worshipped with trembling. Monster goddess! I smashed the tide of corpses! He jumped behind the auxiliary tank, paddled the water with the remaining oars, roared to attract the monsters. 50 winged wolves chased and bit him, and the iron wings fanned the rotting wind and suppressed the car. Bai Ning commanded to turn to the ruined building in the northeast, and 5 afterimages of survivors emerged from the fire and rain pit. 3 men and 2 women with rotten clothes, skinny men holding iron rods to eat fish carcasses, their greedy eyes locked on the convoy's fuel barrels. They rushed towards them and the leading thin man with red eyes smiled ferociously. Fuel! Share half alive, or you will eat the corpses. The ugliness of human nature broke out and the team was already corrupt. At this moment Muxue said in a low voice. Bai Ning, integrate. Food and water are exchanged for loyalty. Plunder and kill without mercy. Bai Ning pointed his gun at the thin man and shouted with iron blood. Join the team and obey the order of the goddess. Fuel and food, the resources and water are tripled, and the positions are assigned. You smash the fish to guard. The thin man and the others stared with wide eyes. Greed turned to shock, and the fish carcasses dropped and they knelt down. God team? 20 barrels of fuel? Listen to the order. Their eyes trembled and worshipped Bai Ning's command. After the climax of the Chutian Palace, the iron pipe explosive pack detonated on the curved peak rock wall. 100 zombie wolves hit the rock and exploded. The black blood was sour and rotten in a chain of autophagy. The iron wings were broken and the brains were red, and the remaining 50 scurrying birds swooped and fought. Chutian smashed the Wolf King's head with an iron fist, causing rotten blood to spurt out from his shoulders and legs, but he returned with a ferocious smile. Goddess trap. 70% of the corpse tide will be destroyed by itself. I am worth a broken leg. The reaction of the team's supporting characters exploded. Suyu screamed in admiration. Monsters join forces. The virus network is built. The nest frequency hacks into the dome coordinates and flashes. He knocked on the radio to build a temporary network, scanned the frequency with the 5 survivors, and predicted that the fire rain would weaken. Yichen's medical station was built at the back of the car, and the whole team was wrapped in corpse cloth to suppress the sepsis. The new survivors transported fish meat to detoxify, and their eyes widened. Medical God! No medicine can be used to wrap the body alive, and septic bleeding can be stopped. The food was integrated into the canned fish carcass biscuits to last 4 days. The remaining nets condensed with water plus 3 liters of fish blood for each person, and 20 barrels of fuel with no leakage and repaired pipes that 80% lasted 1,000 kilometers. Muxue's fingers hurt as if they were broken, and her mind felt slightly relieved. The game was won. The 10-person mobile convoy was formed into a rudimentary force, and the positions were assigned Chutian Zhan Guard Chief, Suyu Communication Network, Bai Ning Recruitment Leader, Yichang Medical Station, and the 5 surviving workers were injured in the fish-smashing transport and were scanned. She welded the hot exhaust coil of the engine to last, and said in a low and strict voice, "There is enough fuel, the convoy is powerful, kill the dome. Break the nest key and smash the bird king." As the surviving thin man carried the barrel, greed flashed in the eyes of the surviving thin man. The coordinates of the dome were blurred 500 kilometers southeast by radio eavesdropping. He whispered mixed with radio eavesdropping. "Looting boss. Coordinates are obtained, all fuel is snatched." In the center of the fire rain, the outline of a giant nest appeared faintly under the thunder clouds. Rotten iron bones entwined with vines entrenched the flood peak, and bird droppings dripped into the molten pit. Human voices calling for help suddenly came from the nest, weak and intermittently like ghosts crying. "Save! The key to the dome! The heart of the nest!" Suyu's radio rushed in and screamed, "Human voices! There are people alive in the giant nest. The distress channel is open, but the bird king guards the nest with an iron beak 20 meters away." Bai Ning turned her head whitely. "Key? Trapper?" Bai Ning's whisper was like broken wire in the rain of fire, piercing the dead silence in the car. The hand of the thin man carrying the bucket suddenly froze, and the greedy flash of his red eyes turned into panic. The red dot on his trouser leg flashed wildly, and the leaked information was like a poisonous snake spitting out a letter. "Looting boss. Coordinates locked, all fuel snatched, ambush in the nest." In the roar of the torrent, the giant nest's red light pulsed, the movement exploded, and the rotten iron bone vines burst open the nest door. Hundreds of winged wolves and beasts came out like black clouds. Each fusion body was a 3-meter-long wolf with iron wings and rotten bones. Its red eyes burned with hooks and claws to stir the waves. The wolf's mouth sprayed acid mist and the bird's wings fanned the rotting wind. The remaining zombies rushed to the shore at the head of the 100 heads. Their fangs gnawed at the iron shell and saws roared, heading straight for the honeycomb hole on the flank of the convoy. The thin man grinned ferociously and turned the knife. He smashed his iron rod at the new survivor, the fish carrier girl, and shouted, "The whole family of moles! Fuel the pile of corpses of your goddess, plunder the boss and destroy him." The female survivor's chest burst with blood, and her screams were drowned by the acid wave. Bai Ning's iron-blooded eyes were split open, her knuckles burst with blood, and the gun barrel smashed into the thin man's forehead. The recoil of the empty gun shook her head. and the swelling and black spots expanded. She roared like a beast. Spy! Kill without mercy. The butt of the gun dented the thin man's forehead, and blood flowed out. Bai Ning's face was sprayed with fire and rain, and she kicked his breastplate violently to push the flood away. The thin man grabbed the car door with her hooks and claws, expanded the honeycomb, and poured acid water. She screamed miserably. Spar? Fuel. Bai Ning's second gun but hit his knee, and there was a crunching sound of bones breaking. Hong hong, he rolled his wings into the wolf's mouth. His red eyes turned desperate and begged for mercy. God, team boss. The wolf's mouth chewed up his rotten flesh, and the acid blood backfired on the beast's body and exploded in the black mist. The 4 new survivors stared wide-eyed and trembled. Smashing the fish and iron, the stick dropped and they knelt under the car. Captain is divine. The ghost inside is dead, and the loyal one smashes the beast. Their eyes turned from greed to the torch of worship. They picked up the stick and smashed it on the side to test the claws of the wolf and bird. Their flesh and blood were bruised, but they smiled ferociously to support the honeycomb. But the beast's tide has been leaked and surrounded. Hundreds of winged wolves and birds broke out of their nests and rushed wildly. The flood peak squeezed the car and turned it sideways. The acid fog, rotten wind, and low pressure made the fire and rain choke the lungs and pierce the heart like thousands of needles. The auxiliary tank shell rotted by 50%. The honeycomb expanded. The iron pipe of the waterer broke, and the rear was weak. Chu Tian's iron fist smashed into his knees, and his shoulders were yellow and the white bones of his legs were spattered with septic blood. His rough roar was broken into a howl of pain. The inner ghost is selling coordinates. The 5 heads of the Beast King are leading the tide. I have broken legs, the iron pipe is rotten, and the rear is all wiped out. The iron pipe support wall trembles, the eyes are crazy and the remaining soldiers are collapsed. Hallucinating wolves and birds overlap to form an endless sea of corpses. Blood, sweat and beard are dripping, mixed with acid water and cold and bone-chilling. Suyu hugged the radio and huddled. His eyes were swollen with black scabs, and his vision was blood mist. He screamed and swept the frequency and burst into tears. 800 beasts! The acid blood dissolves the car 0.5 millimeter per second. The red eye of the Nest King pulsates and locks the frequency to leak the secret. The coordinates of the dome are rumored to plunder hundreds of cars following. The inner ghost can't redeem himself, and the virus is blocked too late. His pants were wet with mortar and his legs were sticky. With a dry throat and blood foam, he hit the wall of the car and laughed at himself. Hacker shit. Selling needles is the nature of the devil, and the Doomsday frequency is worthy of animal food. Yi-chan was wrapped in septic blood at the rear of the car at the medical station, but the residual cloth and yellow mud were ineffective. The shattered sides of his glasses reflected the shadow of the beast and filled the sky. His hands shook and he grabbed the empty needle. His calm face twisted and collapsed and yelled, "It's all rotten." The acid from the winged wolf entered the blood vessels and dissolved the bones in a minute. Chu Tian's shoulders and legs were injured. Necrosis enlarged the heart. The recruit's chest exploded with blood and lungs were punctured. The food and fish corpses were poisoned for a long time, and the water evaporated them dry. Die of thirst first. He pushed away the wounded woman's body, and the rotten flesh rolled up to reveal her lungs. The team screamed in deathly silence. Medical death. The shroud cannot be suppressed without antibiotics, and the beasts gnawed it all to pieces. The survivor's hook claws were torn off the fish-smashing man's legs, and he knelt down and screamed, "Medical God, please save your life if your legs are broken." Yi-chan choked with tears, and the hope was extinguished in his eyes. The new survivor glanced at Bai Ning with begging eyes. Captain, integrate allegiance and can't defeat the beast. Bai Ning held the steering wheel tightly. Her knuckles were bursting with blood, tears streaming down her face, and her vision was completely black. She turned the accelerator sharply, spraying orange and red tail flames and rushing for 70 kilometers. However, the torrent of beasts squeezed the holes in the car body and filled the engine with acidic water. The fuel gauge needle trembled by 30% and slipped by 30%. She hugged her knees and roared, "Leader is shit. The goddess's rudimentary force is full of ghosts. The beast's hive king attacks all the corpses. The dome has a 500-kilometer fuel dream." She slammed the empty gun on the ground and taunted herself. The 3 levels of suppression were like a fire beast pressing down. The winged wolf bird hit the subtank shell with its head and exploded 80% of the honeycomb. The hook claws tore the chassis and the iron teeth bit the fish. The brain blood was stained black and red. The red eye burned and locked the 20 full fuel barrel. Muxue knelt down on the tool bag. Her calves were rotting and burning as if her fingers were broken, and the blue and orange flames of the welded iron pipe and the explosive bag were burning in her head. For desperate situations, the second layer of resin coated with slow rot lasted for an hour. The gas tank was empty of ice and fire. The tide of beast's acid blood dissolved iron. The insider leaked secrets and plundered and followed. The nest key trap team was corrupted like the corpse of the family. The mother flattened the glass and pierced her father's blood. It's a waste of time and there's no way out. Abandon the secondary tank and run away? The fish beast died of thirst when it ran out of fuel. Broke into the nest to expand its team? The Beast King was defeated by a double attack. But 500 meters southeast of the dome, the coordinates must be reversed. Attack wisely. Use the beast tide to eat the ghosts inside. Destroy the humans in the nest. Explode the chain on the rock wall. And use the subtank to self-destruct to clear the area. She said in a low voice. It's not bad. Bai Ning shot the remaining ghosts inside to expand the loyal team. Chu Tian, the Iron 2 blood flag, leaped over the Beast King and broke his leg in hand-to-hand combat. Su Yu, the virus, sealed the nest and frequently locked up and plundered the rumor. Yi Chan rescued the recruits at the shroud station and expanded medical treatment. The fuel barrel welded the iron chain and dragged the auxiliary tank to self-explode the beast wave in the curve, and burned a barrel of resin on the third floor to clear the area. The forces killed 20 people on the dome road. Her words cut through the dead silence. Chu Tiantiaguan knelt on his knees and raised his head sharply. His sweaty beard trembled and he shouted in shock. Monster goddess! Her fingers are rotten and the flesh is welded and fried, and her broken legs leap to the king to obey orders. Her eyes reached the peak of a mad god. Blood spurted out from her shoulders and legs, and she jumped into the subtank with a ferocious smile. His iron arm swung his pipe and hit Hong Yen to test the flow. The hallucination Beast King overlapped with the excited prey and roared. I'll smash the Nest King's brain. Su Yu's black scab needle eyes were swollen and blurred. He hugged the radio and cried and screamed in admiration. God and which girl? The inner ghost virus is blocked, and the nest frequency is horrifying and plundering and stalking. His fingers were beating wildly in spasms, and the loser knelt down in worship and forgot about his wet and cold pants. Yi Chan pushed the glasses to pieces and was bruised by shaking hands. The recruit's leg was torn out of blood and he was calm and twisted in shock. The glasses reflected the blueprint of Muxue's bloody face. Genius! The welder blew himself up to clear the area, and the medical station was encircled and rescued. Choking, he turned to the torch, tore off the corpse cloth and wrapped it in the fishman's legs, smashing the hook claws and bleeding, and his undead eyes ignited hope. The 4 new survivors stared wide-eyed and trembled. They dropped their fish-smashing sticks and knelt down to worship. Goddess Blueprint. Be loyal to the beast-smashing team and expand your team. Fuel, food, and water follow orders. Bai Ning hugged her knees and lifted the waistwood fiercely. Her knuckles were bleeding and the black spots on her head were fading away. Her iron-blooded eyes stared at Muxue, and her voice trembled and she roared with ecstasy. Goddess kill! I will fight with the remaining gangsters to recruit the northeastern afterimage to expand by 20. She stepped on the accelerator. The car body turned hard and turned into a flood. An orange-red tail flame sprayed out for 80 kilometers. The new survivor smashed his wolf claws on the flank and shouted, Captain's sharp gun! Bai Ning swiped the butt of his gun at the man with a flashing eye who was suspected to be a member of the remaining party, and shouted over his shoulder, Are you loyal? The man knelt down and cried, No mole! Smash the beast! The reaction of the team's supporting characters exploded, and their morale exploded from the ashes. Muxue's psychological fire rain makes steel. The fingers are cut off and sacrificed in the game. The third layer of resin burns a barrel of fuel and drags the auxiliary tank to self-destruct. The Beast King behind the Chutian Palace is on the verge of losing his legs and completely annihilating it. She tore off the fuel pipe and leaked the resin and sprayed the third layer of paint wildly. The car body was scorching and rotting. She quickly stopped and dragged the auxiliary tank with a blue-orange flame-welded iron chain. She filled the explosive package and handed it to Chu Tian. The Leap Beast King led the bending rock to self-destruct. The iron pipe and blood flag smashed the brain and exploded the chain to explode. Chu Tian received the blood package, clenched his iron fist and worshipped. Monster God!
I'm worthy.
Leaping behind the auxiliary tank, the water oars were paddled and roared, attracting the five-headed Beast King, the Nest King, whose body was 5 meters long with iron wings and rotting bones, red eyes pulsing, hooks and claws tearing out the shell, the wolf's mouth spurting acid. He smashed the king's brain with an iron fist, and black blood burst out from his shoulders and legs, grinning ferociously. Come on! The Beast King's wings fanned the rotten wind and crushed the car, and hundreds of heads chased and bit the auxiliary tank and dragged it along. Bai Ning commanded to turn to the fire and rain pit of the ruined building in the northeast, and 10 afterimages of the survivors emerged, 6 men and 4 women in rotten clothes, holding sticks, gnawing at the fish carcasses, eyes locked on the fuel. She pointed her gun and shouted. The magic team obeys Muxue's order, triple the food, water and fuel, and the beast-smashing positions are assigned. The survivors were wide-eyed and shocked, and the fish carcasses fell to their knees. The god car? 20 barrels of fuel? Follow the order and smash it. They boarded the car to add 16 people, and the fish-smashing team was responsible for the injuries and sweeps. The Suyu virus closed the nest frequently, and the red dots were destroyed. The news of plundering. Blocked. Dome coordinate protection. Weak fire and rain forecast. Yichun Station expanded the whole team's rotten hook claws to crush the bloody fish flesh. And the new recruit's male leg stopped bleeding and yelled. The god of medicine is working. The back of the Chutian Palace exploded with climax. The auxiliary tank on the Hongwan rock wall was dragged by an iron chain and chased by 300 beasts. The iron pipe blood flag smashed the Nest King's wing and broke his brain and exploded. His shoulder and leg white bones roared and jumped on the roof of the car with an iron fist and smashed the 3 kings' rotten blood and self-eating. And the black mist chain exploded with a chain of bangs. The 3rd layer of resin detonated the fuel barrel and dragged it forward. The self-exploding fireball swallowed 300 tides. The iron wings cut off the brain and the red eyes extinguished the red and black floods. The remaining hundreds of scurrying bird shadows swooped down and devoured themselves. Chutian's iron pipe supported the main car, and the broken leg Sweki smiled ferociously. The goddess self-destructed. 90% of the beast wave was destroyed, and my leg is so broken that it's worth it. The team's supporting characters reacted to Fenshin. Suyu screamed in worship. Monsters join forces. The virus network is completely sealed. The nest asks for help. The pure dome key flashes. Knock on the wireless link to predict the new survival frequency sweep. Yichen's medical station expanded the rear of the car, wrapped Chutian's broken leg and pressed the bones to stop bleeding, and the recruits transported fish to detoxify and stared. The god of medicine has the magic skill of the god of medicine. All sepsis is stopped. The food was integrated into fish corpse cans and cakes to last for 7 days, 1 cake and 2 spoons per person, water condensation net plus 5 liters of fish blood per person and half a cover, and 19 barrels of fuel repair pipes with 90% to last 1,200 kilometers. Muxue felt the pain of a broken finger and was greatly relieved. The game was won, 20 people in the powerful convoy started to attack, and the positions were assigned. Chutian Battle Guard Captain broke his leg and iron flag. Suyu Communication Network blocked the frequency. Bai Ning recruited the leader 16. Yichun Medical Station had no medicine, and the new surviving division of labor smashed beasts and transported money to sweep the frequency. She welded the hot exhaust of the engine to maintain battery life, and killed in a low voice. Plenty of fuel. The convoy forces destroy the beasts, break into the Nest Key Dome. The new survivor smashed the wolf man, admiring the thief in his eyes. Suyu swept the dome defense fire network signal. Intruder rejects. Fire network activated. Coordinate verification. Bai Ning turned his head to be alert, and the outline of the dome at the end of the torrent was pulsing with red network. The torrent is like a python twisting wildly. The rain of fire hits the roof and corrodes the 3rd layer of resin. Every drop of acid seeps into the pit like a needle pricking the heart. The orange tail flame of the team's main engine trembles for 80 kilometers. 19 barrels of fuel pipes are repaired to 90% but leakage. Diesel is mixed with black and red. The hands of the watch slip off 18.5 barrels. The dream of 1,200 kilometers is shattered at the end of 500 kilometers. The embers of the sub-tank's self-destruction sank to the bottom of the flood early. The two auxiliary ironclad vehicles smashed out by the new survivors, a rusty Hummer and a pickup truck picked up from the ruined building in the northeast, were squeezed by the flood peak and expanded by 80%. The hook teeth of the tires were broken when biting fish, the iron pipes of the water paddles were completely rotted, and the engine the heat exhaust coil burnt out and the black smoke choked the lungs. 20 people crowded the main car like a sardine can. The compressed biscuits and canned fish carcasses were combined and only one day's food was left. Each person had half a cake and a spoonful of rotten fish blood. Strictly controlled water condensation residual net plus 3.5 liters of fish blood made his eyes red and chapped with thirst. The recruits' legs were torn from hooks and claws and wrapped in Yichen's shroud to suppress septicemia. Chu Tian's broken leg and white bones were covered with septic blood, and yellow pus spurted from his shoulders to expand his heart veins. Su Yu's black scabs and pinholes were swollen and blood fogged his vision. Headache caused black spots and white condensation on his knuckles to burst with blood. The whole team was injured by sepsis and fish poison choked their lungs. Every breath of fire, rain and rotting wind was like 10,000 knives scraping the bones. Among the 4 new survivors, the man who smashed the fish, the former Thin Man's deputy, with a lustful look in his eyes. Kneeling in the flood and stirring the fish carcasses, he whispered in a viper's voice. "Got team? Half a day of food and fish blood. The red network in the dome refused to invade. 18.5 barrels of fuel were squeezed, and 20 people died of thirst and rot. All the inner ghosts are dead. And the blueprint of the leader and goddess is rotten. Corpses, abandon the weak and run away alone." He glanced at Chu Tian's broken legs and Su Yu's wet pants, and pushed the new female survivor into the flood with a ferocious smile. "You chew the fish corpse, are you loyal? Smash the beast for half a cake, and the poor nobles of the Doomsday will share the corpse." The female survivor's chest was covered with blood and she screamed, and the fish with hook claws bit her carrion, and the blood was stained black and red. She crawled under the car and begged for mercy. "Captain, spare the food, spare your life." 6 other northeastern men and 4 women held sticks and gnawed at the fish carcasses, with their eyes fixed on the fuel barrels. They dropped the sticks and hit the fish man on the shoulder, shouting in agreement. "Integrate allegiance? All the food will be ruined in one day, and the dream of a 500-kilometer dome is a dream. Smash the leader and swallow 19 buckets." The ugliness of human nature explodes, the iron rods smash against the car wall, the honeycomb expands, the fuel leak accelerates, and the team's death is overwhelmed by 3 factors: natural disasters rotting the car, internal fighting between humans and ghosts, and the pulsating red network in the dome rejects the signal like the taunt of death. The black spots of white blood and iron-blooded eye inflammation enlarged and blurred the vision. She hit the fishman with the butt of the empty gun and dented his forehead. Blood sprayed out on his face, and her knuckles exploded with blood and she roared, "Remnants of the party! Shoot the gangsters in the grain and increase the recruitment to 20? This is the end of the noble poor corpse." The fishman knelt on his knees and clawed wildly, howling miserably and then begging for mercy. "Captain, you are greedy for Japan, the Dome Alliance is divided into buckets." But the 4 men surrounded by guns were jealous, and they raised the iron rod and hit Bai Ning's shoulder armor with a crack. "The leader is shit." The goddess welded her fingers to pieces, and abandoned the car to escape the fuel. Chu Tian broke his leg and held it up with an iron pipe. His shoulder was pus-stained and he was laughing ferociously, but he was exhausted and backed into the wall, roaring into pain. "I have self-destructed in the back of the palace. I can't hit the mole with a broken leg. Kill them all." Su Yu curled up in his radio pants and soaked the mortar, crying with black scab and blood mist. "The virus net cannot seal humanity, and the signal of the dome fire network is strongly encrypted. If you can't get in, the mole can't redeem himself." Yichan was wrapped in the rear of the car at the medical station, and the drug-free corpse was covered with yellow cloth. Mud, broken glasses reflected the shadow of the stick. His hands shook and he pushed the empty syringe. His calm face twisted and collapsed. Corruption expands. The poison in the food and fish choked the lungs and dissolved the bones in one day. The female recruit couldn't hold it down through a thoracotomy and lung puncture, and the ghost inside the food was smashed to pieces. The new female survivor's legs and claws were bleeding and she knelt in the flood. Her eyes begged for mercy and swept the whole team. The god of medicine. Spare the life. Muxue knelt down on the broken tool bag. Her fingers were aching and broken. Her calf was rotting and burning like thousands of ants gnawing at the bones. The blue and orange flames of the welded iron pipe and the explosive bag were in her head. For desperate situations. 2 auxiliary vehicles rotted at the bottom of the flood. 18.5 barrels of fuel leaked and 3 liters of food and water a day. And the remaining gangsters' humanity exploded on the dome and the red network refused. But the outline of the dome loomed at the end of the 500-kilometer-long steel arch. The red network pulsated like a heart, and the afterimage of the Survivor Alliance Iron Castle emerged on the edge of the torrent bend. She played a psychological game with Iceblade. Abandoning the car and integrating it? Human nature will be completely destroyed. Burn fuel to repair? He died of thirst without backup. He used the remaining gangsters to clear the ambush and welded 2 pontoons to tow the Alliance's diplomacy. She thundered in a low voice and said, "It's not bad." Bai Ning, the gun but defeated the remaining party and recruited the Fringe Alliance to expand to 30. Chu Tian, the iron pipe and blood flag, broke the leg and smashed the ambush sentry to clear the way. Su Yu, the virus, terrorized the dome and encrypted it to reveal the source of the weather. Yi Chun, the shroud station, pressed a day's grain of fish blood to detoxify and expand medical treatment. The finger welding pontoon dragged 2 auxiliary vehicles. The resin residual pressure burned half a barrel of fuel to repair the engine's hot exhaust. And the convoy forces killed 30 people and broke into the red net of the dome. The ice blade cut through the dead silence, and the fishman's forehead was full of blood and trembling. He dropped the iron rod and knelt down to worship. "Monster goddess! Fingers are rotten and welded to the pontoon, and the traitor's loyalty will smash the alliance." His greedy eyes turned into a torch of worship, and he picked up the stick and hit his shoulder with blood and yelled, "The remaining party is more than dead. The gods' team is worth a lot of food for a day." The 4 stick men were jealous and shocked, and their hands shaking his stick, he knelt down and said to Hong, "The blueprint defies the will of the gods. Integrate, crush, ambush and obey orders." Bai Ning hugged her knees and raised her head fiercely, her knuckles bursting with blood as she held the gun head, and the flames retreated. Her iron-blooded eyes widened, and Muxue's voice trembled with ecstasy, shouting, "Goddess kills. I'm a gunman with a decisive move. The edge of the Iron Castle will expand by 30. She stepped on the accelerator and turned into a corner. An orange-red tail flame sprayed out 90 kilometers of hard-squeezed acid water. Chu Tian broke his leg on the iron pipe and knelt down and lifted it up fiercely. He shouted in shock with a sweaty beard, "Amazing skill! I am worthy of breaking my leg and smashing it against the sentry." The white bones of his shoulders and legs spurted out, and he jumped on the side of the car and swung the iron fist to hit Hong Yan to test the flow. The hallucinations ambushed and excited the prey. Su Yu's black scab and blood mist hugged the radio and he cried and screamed, "The witch is terrifying. The virus network is encrypted in the dome." His fingers were convulsed and he knocked so hard that he forgot to wet his pants. Yi Chan pushed the mirror to shreds, his hands trembling and bruised, and his calmly twisted glasses reflected Muxue's bloody face. Genius welding the float. The god of medical expansion is wrapped in a day's bread. Choking, he turned the torch, tore off the shroud and wrapped the woman's chest and lungs with puncture hooks. The recruits shouted, "The god of medicine is alive." The new survivor's eyes burned into the sky in worship, and his morale exploded with ashes. Muxue won the steel-making game in the rain of mental fire. The finger was broken and the pus was sacrificially welded to the pontoon. The residual pressure of the resin was sprayed with blue and orange flames wildly on the rotten casings of the 2 auxiliary vehicles. The iron chains were dragged along, and half a barrel of fuel was burned to repair the heat exhaust coil to last for 18 barrels. She tore the leaky resin-welded iron cylinder from the fuel pipe and floated the Hummer pickup truck. The car body was rotten and she quickly stopped the blue flame blast welding engine. She handed Chu Tian the blood flag of the iron pipe. The leaping sentry smashed the brain to clear the road, and the broken leg caused the ambush to eat itself. Chu Tian took the flag and clenched his iron fist and trembled in worship. Monster value! The UFO Hummer came behind. Water the oars were rowing wildly, and an ambush sentry appeared on the curved rock wall, plundering the remnants of the Alliance from the edge of the dome. The 5-headed Iron Fortress traitor in wrought armor held a rocket launcher with red eyes to lock the fuel. He smiled with greedy eyes and whispered, 18 barrels of the magic car? The devil sells the coordinates, and the rocket shell melts and robs them all. Chu Tian's iron pipe smashed the first sentry's head. Black blood exploded, and the bloody flag of the broken leg leaped to the second place with a ferocious smile. Come on! The traitor's rocket sprayed fire and rain in the wrong direction, and the hook claw tore the leg and white bones sprayed out. He smashed the 3 rotten armors with his iron fist, causing the acid blood to gnaw itself. He yelled, Goddess order! I am the queen! The eyes of the remaining 2 traitors turned to regret, and they knelt down and begged for mercy. Spare! The fuel is divided, spare your life for the infighting of the Dome Rebellion. Chu Tian's knee bone was shattered when the tube exploded, and the blood was stained black and red and shouted, Death to the remaining ghosts inside! They howled miserably and grabbed the auxiliary vehicle honeycomb with their hooks and claws. The rocket launcher fell and self-detonated and the fireball swallowed up the remains of the sentry. The survivors of the edge of the iron fortress looked out from the fort gate with wide eyes and trembling. Bai Ning commanded to turn around the iron fort pit, pointed his gun at the fort gate and yelled diplomacy. Muxue ordered the divine team. Join the alliance and listen to the blueprint. Food, water, and fuel will be tripled a day, and the ambush positions will be expanded to 30. The 10 people of the iron fort, 7 men and 3 women in rotten clothes, gnawed the remains of the rocket barrels, gnawed on the fish bones, locked eyes on the 18 barrels and worshipped in shock. The bones dropped and they knelt down. The god's car is against the sky? Welding the pontoon and dragging the car into a red net? Follow the order and beat up the traitors. They waved and boarded the Hummer pickup truck to expand 26 people, smashed the hooks and hooks to transport fish, bandaged the injured and divided the work, shouting, Captain's sharpshooting to kill the remaining party. The fish man and the stick man smashed the blood on their own legs to atone for their sins, with unmistakable admiration in their eyes. Suyu's virus rushed to the dome to encrypt, and the radio red up flashed crazily, hacking into the car and whispering, Revealed! The source of the weather disaster, the laboratory virus leaked, the climate weapon went out of control, ice and fire reincarnated, and the antidote channel was hidden in the dome, but the rebellion fought and the defenders split. The whole team stared and trembled and screamed in worship. Hacker God! The virus hero reveals the source. Yichun stood up and wrapped Chu Tian's broken leg to press the bones. The whole team's rotten hooks, claws, chest, lungs, septicemia and fish poison were stopped, and the medicine-free shroud magic skill shouted. The god of medicine has expanded to 30. 1 day of food and fish blood will relieve the body for 2 days. After Muxue welded the pontoon, his finger was broken and the blood dripped on the welding blueprint. The psychological relief was released. The game was won, the forces killed 30 people, 18 barrels of fuel repaired the heat exhaust to support 800 kilometers, the positions were assigned. The Chu Tian War Guard captain broke his leg and the iron flag cleared the sentry. The Suyu communication network hacked the source. Bai Ning's diplomatic collar expanded to the 26. Yichen's medical station was wrapped without medicine. The surviving alliance smashed the ambush and transported funds to sweep the frequency. She lowered her voice to kill and weld the orange flames of her engine to last. Plenty of fuel, the alliance to destroy the rebel convoy, break into the dome's red net to verify the key. The survivors of the Iron Castle smashed the traitor's corpse, and their eyes flashed in worship. The blood flag of the Queen of Chutian Palace jumped back with a ferocious smile. Goddess Pontoon! The sentries are all wiped out, and I have a broken leg to clear the road. At the end of the torrent, the red net on the steel wall of the dome's giant arch pulsed for nearly 100 kilometers. The fire and rain weakened and turned the corpses into ashes. Suyu's frequency sweep suddenly sounded the defender's encryption. Intruders are locked. The fire network at the gate is open. Rebellion gunfire inside. Fighting for the antidote to the virus. Bai Ning turned his head in iron-blooded alert. The red network pulsed and exploded, and the trajectory of the artillery fire locked the main vehicle. The traitor defenders roared internally. The antidote is mine. Kill all the rebels. The shells splashed with fire waves, and the convoy turned hard with orange flames. The torrent is like a giant black and red python entrenched. The embers of fire and rain turn into a fine mist of corpse ash. The steel wall of the dome is close at hand at the end of 100 kilometers. The red network pulses like blood beating wildly. The trajectory of artillery fire tears through the gray fog and locks the orange tail flame of the main vehicle. The rebels roar internally. The antidote is mine. All the invading corpses are dissolved. The bullets the head flooded and a fire wave exploded. The auxiliary Hummer pickup truck pontoon was dragged by the iron chain and trembled violently. The honeycomb holes expanded by 90%. Acid water poured into the bullet holes in the door and corroded the third layer of resin. After the engine hot exhaust coil was repaired, black smoke lasted for 18 barrels of diesel but leaked and mixed with the flood. The dream of sustaining 800 kilometers was shattered, and the red network refused. 30 people crowded the main car and auxiliary cars like iron-blooded sardines, compressed biscuits and canned fish carcasses for one day, half a cake per person, 1 spoonful of rotten fish blood, Yichun detoxified for 2 days, 3 liters of water-condensed residual net fish blood, half cover and half cover, rationed by thirst, red eyes, cracked lips, chapped lips, medical shroud wrapped around the whole team, septicemia, fish poison, hook claws tore the lungs, Chu Tian was broken, septic. Blood sprayed out from the white bones of the legs, yellow pus enlarged the heart veins, iron pipes and blood flags supported the knees, so you had black scabs, needle eyes, swollen blood and foggy vision pants, wet and wet radio, head inflammation, black spots and white congealed knuckles bursting with blood, empty guns. Iron Castle survivors smashed the fishbone eyes with iron rods and smashed the fishbone eyes, greedy for fuel, and turned into panic whispers. 18 barrels of the god. Team? The red net cannon melted and destroyed all. The Dome Rebellion grabbed all the antidote, abandoned the car and kneeled down to Hongrao to dismember the body with fuel. The fishman and the stickman smashed his own legs to make blood. His eyes flashed with greed, and he knelt down in despair. The value of the blueprint goddess welding the pontoon? 1 day's food and fish blood can't withstand the artillery fire. The remaining gangsters are dead and their humanity is rotten, so they escape alone to grab the antidote. The survivor's chest and lungs were pierced through the shroud and he screamed in the pickup truck. The god of medicine spares half of the cake. The pulsating heart of the red network swallows the car. The ugliness of human nature explodes into the gray fog again. The iron rod hits the wall of the car and the honeycomb sounds. The fuel leak accelerates, and the team's death is overwhelmed by 4 factors: the red network's artillery fire, the infighting of the rebels, the rejection of the dome, and the extreme decay of materials. The black spots of the iron-blooded ocular eye were blurred. She hit the Iron Castle man's shoulder with the empty gun butt and sprayed blood. Her knuckles exploded with blood and she roared. Another explosion? The remaining gang members are going to explode again? The dream of shooting and smashing the antidote is over. 30 noble corpses are over. The Iron Castle man knelt down on his knees and the gray mist rocket launcher fell into the flood. He howled miserably and turned to beg for mercy. Captain, forgive me. Dome Alliance divides the antidote into buckets. But the survivors, 6 men and 4 women, were armed with sticks and red guns. They raised iron rods and smashed Bai Ning's shoulder armor twice. Leader's corpse. Goddess's fingers are rotten and welded to the pontoon. 18 barrels of red net cannons melted and the weak fled. Chuton broke his leg and the iron pipe supported his knees and fell to the wall of the Hummer. His shoulders were filled with pus and blood and he laughed ferociously and howled in pain. I'm on duty at the back of the line. I can't hit the rebels with my broken legs. All the red nets are wiped out. Suyu cried loudly in the blood mist of the radio. The virus network cannot block the artillery fire. Half of the antidote channels are encrypted in the dome, and the rebellion is beyond redemption. Yichun was wrapped in the medical station at the back of the car. His glasses shattered to reflect the shadow of the gunfire. His hand shook and the empty needle was calm and his face twisted. Septicemia expands the heart and lungs. The poison of the second day of food and fish cannot be suppressed, and the recruit's chest is pierced by red nets and shattered by bullets. Smash all the corpses of the ghosts inside the antidote. The fishman and the stickman echoed the stick and smashed the fish corpses and roared. Integration loyalty is rotten, 1 day's food is all rotten. The leader of the 100-kilometer cannon dream ate up 18 barrels. In the gray mist, the red net pulsed and exploded. The second round of artillery fire. The trajectory deflected and flooded the main vehicle's flanks. The resin rotten at 3 times the speed, and 30 people screamed in despair like thousands of ants eating the soul. Muxue knelt down on the tool bag, Her fingers were broken, pus and blood dripped on her calves were rotting, and the fire burned with thousands of ants eating at her bones. Blue and orange flames were left on the welded iron pipes, and the explosives were packed with thunder clouds in her head. The fifth level of desperate situation: the red network, the cannon, the 18 barrels of fuel, the pontoon, the tow truck, the rusty Hummer pickup truck, 3 liters of food and water a day, the dome, the antidote to the rebellion. But the giant arched steel wall of the dome loomed with the coordinates of the key. A pure flash, a clue to the giant nest, the iron skeletal vine, the bird king's red light afterimage, and her psychological game of ice blades reached its peak. Abandoning power and kneeling down? Human nature is completely destroyed. Burn fuel to rush? There is no backhand cannon solution. Use the rebels' internal fighting to charge the fortress and blast the door to gain trust. Her low voice muffled the thunderous gray fog. Immortal. Bai Ning, the airgun control logistics, strictly controlled the distribution of food and water for 2 days and expanded 30 Ironblood. Chu Tian, the iron pipe blood flag, led 10 commandos to blast through the gate to clear out the rebels. Su Yu, the virus was suppressed and encrypted, the fire network was shut down, and the government concealed the source of the virus. Yi Chan, with the assault, the medical station saves the injured defenders and exchanges trust for the antidote. Finger-soldered assault fortress, resin press, blue-orange flame-sprayed steel plate reinforces the main vehicle. The iron chain pontoon turns the corner, explosive pack burns a barrel of fuel, and the engine explodes with 200-degree orange flames to rush into the red net. And the convoy kills the forces and breaks into the dome to verify the new order inside the key. The ice blade cut through the death silence like an oracle. The Iron Castle man's forehead was full of blood. His eyes were bulging and trembling. The gray mist from the rocket launcher dropped and he knelt down to worship. Monster goddess. The finger is broken and welded to the fortress. The remaining party is loyal to burst the door. His greedy eyes turned into the torch of worship. He picked up the iron rod and smashed his own chest with blood and shouted. The inner ghost is more than dead. The god team's 2 days of food are worth the red net. The 6 stick men were jealous. She was shocked, her hands shaking and her stick dropped to her knees. The blueprint is against the sky. The welding charge obeys the order and smashes the rebels. Bai Ning hugged her knees and the loser raised his head fiercely, his knuckles bursting with blood as he held the empty gun and retreated. Her iron-blooded eyes widened. Muxue's voice trembled with ecstasy and roared, "Goddess kills. I am a logistic gunman who will rule the 30 Iron Bloods." She stepped on the accelerator and sprayed out orange flames for hundreds of kilometers, squeezing through the gray mist and turning to avoid the artillery fire. Chu Tian's iron pipe broke his legs and kneeled up, and he shouted in shock, "Magical skill! I'm going to attack the door with an assault." The bones of his shoulders and legs spewed out, and he leaped to the roof of the car with his iron fist and smashed the limestone to test the flow. He hallucinated that the rebels were overlapping and excited, and the prey yelled, "Assault 10 people, listen to the order." Su Yu's black scab and blood mist hugged the radio and he cried and screamed in admiration. The witch scares the source. The virus rushed to shut down the fire network. His fingers spasmed and he knocked on his pants. Wet red spots flashed crazily. Yi Chan pushed the mirror to pieces, his hands shaking and bruised, and his calmly twisted glasses reflected Muxue's bloody face. Genius welds the fortress. Medical rescue the defenders in exchange for trust in the god without medicine. Choking, he turned the torch, tore off the shroud and wrapped the recruit's chest and lungs in medical treatment. Following the assault, the recruit shouted, "The god of medicine is alive and well." The survivors' eyes burned into the sky in worship, and their morale exploded like a volcano. Muxue's psychological rain of fire steelmaking game won the ultimate cool release. Blood dropped from the finger and sacrificial welding charged into the fortress resin residual pressure, and blue and orange flames sprayed wildly. The steel plate reinforced the potholes and honeycombs of the main vehicle. The iron chain pontoon turned forward and hit the fillet welding explosive-wrapped iron pipe. Burning a barrel of fuel, the engine thermally detonated the 200-degree orange flame, which lasted 17 barrels. She tore the fuel pipe, leaking resin-welded steel plate fortress. The car body was sizzling and rotting. Blue flame exploded and welded into the corner, and handed Chu Tian the iron pipe blood flag to strengthen. Leading the assault 10-man iron fort man fish man stick man leap auxiliary Hummer pickup truck, the blood flag smashed the rebels' brains, blasting rockets to clear the door, and the broken leg came back to eat itself. Chu Tian received the flag, clenched his iron fist and trembled in admiration and shouted, "The monster is worthy of explosion." The Leap auxiliary Hummer came behind and led the assault. The water oars were scraping through the gray fog, and the steel arch of the dome gate was pulsating. The red net pulsated for nearly 50 kilometers, and a melee between the defenders and the rebels emerged. 20 rebels holding machine guns and bazookas with red eyes locked on the antidote, with greedy eyes and a ferocious smile, whispering, 17 barrels of the poor corpse car? The government concealed the source of the virus, and invaded the melting shell to steal the antidote, and swallowed it all. The Chutian iron pipe smashed the rebels' brains, blasted black blood fizzless, and broke their legs with blood flags. He leapt to second place with a ferocious smile. "Come on, goddess order." The rebel rocket sprayed gray mist in the wrong direction, and the hook claws tore the legs and bones. He smashed 5 rotten armors with his iron fists and dented themselves, shouting, "War guards Chong Qingmen." Assault Iron Castle Man, Fishman, Stickman, Iron Rod rocket remains came up, eyes wide and trembling, and followed, "Chu Tunshin. The blood flag is invincible," and hit the brain. The remaining 15 rebels turned back in despair. Regretful, he knelt down in the gray mist and begged for mercy. "Spare. The antidote is gone, the dome defenders are divided, spare your life." Chu Tian's knee bone shattered and he shouted, "Death to the remnants of the rebels." They screamed and clawed at the corners of the fortress, and the rocket launchers dropped ashes and self-detonated fireballs to swallow up the rebels. The wounded defenders looked through the cracks in the gate, eyes wide open, trembling and screaming. Foreign aid team? Chu Tian's blood flag cleared the rebels. Rescue the injured in exchange for trust. Bai Ning's logistics commander led the truck into the gray fog pit, pointed his gun at the fortress and shouted, "Goddess's order. Strictly control the 2-day ration, half bread, fish, blood and water, half cover. Each person's position. Survivors have 20 transportation costs to wrap up the wounded and scan, 17 barrels of fuel to prevent leakage, resin pressure, medical expansion. Yichun will follow the assault." The survivors smashed the fish bones of the rebel corpses, and locked eyes for 7 barrels of people were shocked and worshipped, and the fish bones fell to their knees. God of logistics. The value of the food in the second day has exploded and the internet has become famous. Listen to the order. They waved the shrouds to transport the wounded and divided the work and yelled, "Captain Iron Blood." The Suyu virus rushed to the dome to encrypt the entire system, and the radio red dots flashed and hacked into the whole car, whispering, "Reveal the whole." The source of the weather disaster. The government concealed the leak of the virus in the laboratory, and the climate weapon deliberately went out of control to create chaos. The antidote was hidden in the dome, but the rebels fought among themselves and the defenders fought among themselves. The fire network was successfully shut down. The whole team stared and trembled and screamed in worship. Hacker God. The virus hero exposed the government's concealment. Yichun jumped with the assault medical station. Auxiliary pickup truck, broken glasses, wrapped the wounded defenders in rotting lungs, punctured the chest, crushed the blood and fish poison, used the medicine-free shroud to stop the bleeding and yelled, "The god of medicine exchanges for trust. The defenders have the antidote." 5 of the injured defenders had their legs broken, their arms rotten and blood sprayed out. Despair in their eyes turned to worship and choked with sobs. Surgeons are invincible. In exchange for trust in the door key, all the rebels will be cleared. Muxue Welding Fortress finished the finger-breaking blood drip welding blueprint and released the ultimate psychological relief. The game was won. The forces killed 30 iron-blooded soldiers and 17 barrels of fuel to support the hot exhaust for 700 kilometers, and the position was stable. The blood flag of Chutian war guards exploded. The government concealed the source of Suyu's communication network hack. Bai Ning's logistics unified 2 days of food and water. Yichun Medical Station rescued the defenders in exchange for trust, and the survivors smashed the rebel transport frequency sweep. She lowered her voice to kill and weld the orange flames of the engine to last. Full of fuel, the convoy destroys the rebel garrison. Alliance break into the dome to verify the key and antidote. The new order. The Queen of Chutian Temple jumped back to the fortress with a bloody flag and said with a ferocious smile, "Fortress of the goddess. The rebels are all wiped out. I have a broken leg and it's time to clear the door." The cracks in the steel arch of the dome gate widened and the red net went out and pulsed to a stop. The remaining 10 men of the garrison greeted them from the inside with guns and bows in worship, flashing their eyes and shouting, "God's team key verification. Internal antidote. The library is open, but the virus core laboratory has a countdown of 30 minutes, and the ultimate threat is facing the entire dome." Suyu's frequency sweep alarm suddenly flashed with red light. Crash started. The virus matrix explodes, and the source of ice and fire is destroyed. Bai Ning turned his head and was alert. The orange flames of the fortress burst into the cracks in the door, and the rebels roared internally. "Matrix is mine! Kill them all!" Green mist seeped out from the depths of the laboratory, and the team stepped into the steel corridor of the dome. The green mist coiled like a poisonous snake in the steel corridor. The steel walls of the huge arch of the dome pulsated and buzzed with residual heat. After the red net was extinguished, the light tube shattered and flashed with blood-red light. The sticky and sour sap on the alloy plates under the feet merged into a river. Virus spores floated in the air and choked the lungs like thousands of needles piercing the heart. Every time I took a breath, my throat corroded and hissed. The 10 remnants of the defenders were armed with rotten armor. Their eyes were glistening in worship, but their legs were weak and they knelt down. Their shoulders and arms were rotten and the flesh was dripping with pus and blood, and they whispered in despair. The God Team key verification. The antidote library was half opened. The rebels destroyed 70% of the inventory, and the green mist exploded deep in the virus mother laboratory. 28 minutes on the clock. All 3,000 survivors in the dome are dissolving their corpses. They pointed at the huge door at the end of the steel corridor, which was twisted and deformed. Green mist surged through the cracks. Inside, there was a rumor that the rebels were roaring like wild beasts. "Mine is the antidote to the mother's body. Grab all 17 barrels of fuel for the poor corpse car and dissolve the corpses of the defenders into ashes." The ugliness of human nature exploded again. The defender locked eyes with the orange flames of the main car, smashed the leg bone of his comrade with an iron rod and shouted, "Goddess fuel value mother body. Abandon the weak melting tank and grab 17 barrels of ice and fire outside the dome." The other defenders were jealous and echoed, smashing the butts of their rifles into the skinny soldiers' brains, spraying out, but they turned around. The resin in the fuel pipe was pressed into the gap, and the grappling hook tore the steel plate to cause rot. The green mist can't be held up by the half-covered food, fish, and blood water in the second day. The inner ghosts are all dehumanized and dead. They swallowed the antidote barrel and escaped. 30 iron-blooded survivors smashed the rebel corpses to transport the money. Their eyes burned with greed and they shouted in panic. The dome trap? The defenders rebelled and melted the 17 barrels, and the entire team was wiped out by the green mist. The morale collapsed, the remains of the iron rods and rocket barrels fell to the ground and clinked. The fuel leaks mixed with the green mist, accelerated the corrosion of the heat exhaust coils, and the black smoke shattered the dream of life. Chu Tian's broken leg, the iron pipe supported the knee, the steel plate was stained with blood, and the shoulder was yellow with pus. The bloody smile turned into a howl of pain. "I'm here to clear the door." The green mist dissolves the leg bones. Suyu hugged the radio with black scab and blood mist, hugged the radio and wet his pants crying. The virus's mother body is encrypted and sealed. The government concealed the source and accelerated the collapse, and the rebellion was too late. Yi Chen's glasses were broken and wrapped in the defender's wounds. The empty syringe in his eyes was calm and twisted. His hands were shaking. The green mist of septicemia expands and dissolves the lungs. The corpse cloth without medicine cannot hold it down, and all 3,000 corpses are destroyed. The butt of the empty gun with white condensation and black spots on his head hit the dent in the thin defender, and his knuckles burst with blood and he shouted, "Rebellion smashed the antidote dream, the 30 iron-blooded nobles are over." But the remaining 20 rebels jumped out from the cracks in the giant door. The red eyes of the wrought-armored machine guns and bazookas locked onto the fuel, and they roared with greedy eyes. Invasion of the 17 barrels of melting shells. The trajectory of the gunfire tore through the green mist and blasted the steel corridor wall, and the alloy fragments rained down like fire on 30 people, crushing the desperate ants to eat their souls. Muxue's fingers were broken, pus and blood dripped down her legs were rotting, the fire was burning, and thousands of ants were biting her bones. She was kneeling on a broken tool bag and welded steel plates with blue and orange flames. Thunderclouds rolled over her head. 6 desperate situations. 25 minutes countdown to the explosion of the mother body of the green mist virus. 3,000 corpses in the dome. The remaining fire of the rebels. The ghosts in the defenders. The human nature of the ghosts. 17 barrels of fuel and resin leaking green. The rotten heat exhausts black smoke and has a battery life of 700 kilometers. The dream is shattered. The second day of food, fish, blood and water is half covered. The medical treatment is empty, and there is no medicine. The shroud suppresses septicemia and expands the heart and lungs. The third layer of assault fortress pits and honeycomb resin is corroded and slow. The car door has bullet holes and is acidic and green. The key coordinates are pure and flash. The giant nest clues are iron bones and vines. The red light of the bird king looms and the antidote blueprint appears. She plays the ultimate psychological game. Give up 3,000 people and kneel down? Total destruction. Burning fuel to explode the mother body? No backhand melting dome. Reverse the source using internal bucket welding virus suppressor. Her low voice burst into the green mist. Immortal. Bai Ning, the airgun control logistics strictly controlled the distribution of food and water for 2 days and expanded the 30 Ironblood Alliance defenders to 3,000. Chu Tian, the Iron Pipe Blood Flag led a commando team of 20 people to blow up the huge door to clear out the remaining rebels. Suyu, the virus rushed into the core of the mother's body and hacked into the government's concealed source gate to blast and reveal the antidote. Yi Chun, the medical station rescued the injured. Defenders from the mutiny. Replaced trust with the magic weapon of expanding the corpse cloth. Finger welding virus suppressor blue-orange residual flame sprays resin residual pressure welded steel plate filter to absorb green spores. Iron chain hits the corner explosive package to explode the heart of the mother body. Burns half a barrel of fuel. The engine explodes with 300-degree orange flame heat and has a battery life of 16.5 barrels. The convoy kills the forces and breaks into the core to verify the key antidote and establish a new order. The ice blade cut through the dead silence like an oracle. The thin defenders' foreheads were sprayed with blood. Their eyes were round and trembling. The green mist dropped from the rocket launcher and they knelt down and worshipped. Monster goddess. Broken welding suppressor on her finger. Betrayal and loyalty will explode the mother's body. The greed in his eyes turned into a torch of worship. He picked up the green mist, picked up the iron rod and smashed his chest with blood, shouting blood. The inner ghost is more than dead. And the divine team's 2 days' worth of food is worth the green mist. The rebel's rotten armor stopped in the air. His eyes turned red and shocked. His hands trembled and his machine gun fell to his knees. The blueprint is against the sky. The welding suppressor obeyed the order and smashed his comrades. Bai Ning hugged her knees and the loser raised her head sharply. Her knuckles bursting with blood as she held the empty gun head and retreated. She was ironclad. Muxue's bloody eyes widened and her voice trembled with ecstasy and roared. Goddess kill! I will shoot down the 30 iron-blooded alliance in 3,000. He smashed the butt of his rifle into the traitor's brain and blasted him. He was assigned to shout at the steel corridor. Goddess's order. Strictly control half cake, fish, blood and water half cover. Each person's position 20 transport wages for survivors. Wrap up injuries and scan frequency. 300 defenders cleared the traitor's body and transported the corpse. 16.5 barrels of fuel were leak-proof. Yi Chun followed the attack. The defenders' 300 eyes turned to worship with despair. Their rotten armor dropped and they knelt down in the green mist and shouted, God's logistics! 2 days' worth of food will explode. The mother body obeys the order. They armed the rebels with guns and smashed them together with iron and blood. Chu Tian's iron pipe broke his legs and he knelt down and lifted up fiercely. He was shocked and growled with blood, sweat and beard. Magic skill! I will lead an assault to blast the giant door. The white bones of his shoulders and legs spurted out and he jumped to the top of the fortress. The iron fist swung the pipe and smashed the green rock to test the flow. The hallucination mother body overlapped and excited the prey. Roaring. Assault on the 20-man iron castle. The fishman, the stickman and the man's wrought armor obey the order. He led the team to tear open the cracks in the giant door with his hook and claws. The rebels' remaining rockets sprayed green mist in the wrong direction. He smashed 10 wrought armors with his iron fist. making them dent and self-destructing. He roared. War Guard Chongqing Mu Body. The assault eyes widened and trembled as he followed. God Chu Tian. The blood flag is invincible and smashed in the brain. The remaining 10 rebels knelt down in despair and begged for mercy. Spare. The antidote, the mother body government is hiding it, spare your life. Chu Tian's knee bone was shattered and shouted. Death to the rebels. Howled in agony as the hooks and claws clawed at the solder joints of the suppressor. The rockets turned green and exploded with fireballs that swallowed up the rebels. The wounded defenders peered out of the giant door with eyes wide open and trembled as they screamed. Foreign aid team? The Chu Tian blood flag clears out the rebels. Rescue the injured in exchange for trust. Su Yu's black scab and blood mist hugged the radio and he cried and screamed. The witch scares the source. The virus rushes to the mother body and blasts it. His fingers convulsed and the red dots flashed wildly, and hacker whispers filled the gallery. The ultimate secret. The government concealed the source of the virus leak in the laboratory. The climate weapon deliberately released the ice and fire reincarnation virus spores to control the global weather collapse, creating chaos and selecting elites. The antidote mother was hidden in the dome, but the rebels destroyed the warehouse, and the countdown to the successful closure of the blast was stopped for 21 minutes. The whole team stared and trembled, shaking and screaming in worship. Hacker God! The virus hero exposes the government's conspiracy. Yichan pushed the mirror to pieces and his hands shook and bruised him. He calmly twisted his glasses to reflect Muxue's bloody face. Genius welds the suppressor. Medical rescue turns trust in the drug-free god. Choking, he turned the torch and tore it apart. The defenders were wrapped in shrouds, their rotting lungs were punctured. Their chests were punctured, and their green poison hook claws were bleeding. They yelled. The god of medicine changes the key. 3,000 live antidote points. The wounded defenders had broken legs, broken arms, and blood spurted out. Despair in their eyes turned to admiration and choked with sobs. Surgeons are invincible. In exchange for core trust, we rebel against the Qing dynasty. Muxue's psychological Reign of Fire steelmaking game won the ultimate cool release. Finger-cutting blood drop sacrificial welding virus suppressor blue and orange residual flame sprayed resin residual pressure steel plate filter to absorb green spores to purify the air, iron chain collision fillet welding electromagnetic pulse explosive package iron pipe pulse heart, burning half a barrel of fuel engine thermal detonation, 300 degrees orange flame lasts 16.5 barrels. She tore off the leaking resin welded filter of the fuel pipe. The car body was green and rotten, stopped with blue flame explosion welding pulse, and handed Chu Tian the iron pipe blood flag to strengthen. Leading 20 people to attack the giant gate, the blood flag smashed the mother's heart pulse to explode the source of the government, and the broken leg was devoured by itself. Chu Tian took the flag, clenched his iron fist, trembled and shouted in worship. Monster, it's worth it! Jumping through the giant gate with an assault, roaring through the green mist, the steel room of the mother laboratory flashed red light and the green ball of the virus pulsed like a heartbeat. The countdown to the spore cloud explosion flashed in red for 19 minutes, and the government terminal screen shattered and displayed. Elite screening plan is successful, the eternal wheel of ice and fire. The rebels are remnant. The leader hugged the green ball with a sinister smile on his face. The source is mine. Dissolve 3,000 and grab 16 barrels. Chu Tian's iron pipe smashed his head and exploded the green slurry, and the blood flag jumped to the second place with a ferocious smile. Come on, goddess, order. The pulse explosive wrapped iron pipe electromagnetically exploded the green ball's heart crack. The spore cloud solidified and the purification filter was sucked into the fortress, and the leader's hook claw tore it apart. The white bones of his legs spurted out, and he smashed the rotten armor with his iron fist, devouring himself and shouting, "Clear the source." The assaulting defenders widened their eyes and worshipped. Chu Tian is invincible.
Pulse divine explosion.
The green ball of the mother body exploded and the antidote blue liquid spewed out, and Su Yuhai's terminal broadcast across the dome. The antidote is released. The government conspiracy is exposed. The source of ice and fire is destroyed. Bai Ning's logistics unified the steel corridor to clean the pit. Empty guns pointed at the fortress and shouted, "Goddess's order." Antidote distribution is strictly controlled. 3,000 posts, survivors transport blue liquid to wrap wounds and scan frequency. 16.5 barrels of fuel are leak-proof. Medical expansion to Yichen's full dome station. 3,000 survivors smashed the eyes of corpses and locked blue liquid to worship in shock, knelt down and shouted, "God's logistics! Listen to the order, new order." Yichen's medical station was expanded. Glasses were broken and wrapped in rotten wounds throughout the dome, and the green poison was pressed to stop bleeding. The god of medicine has a solution without medicine. 3,000 lives. Muxue welded the suppressor and cut off the fingers and dripped the blood and dripped the welding blueprint to release the ultimate psychological relief. The game was won. The forces killed the 30 Ironblood Alliance, and the 3016 barrels of fuel and hot exhaust could support 1,000 kilometers, and the position was stable. The source of the blood flag explosion of the Chutian war chief, Su Yu's communication network hacked the government conspiracy. Bai Ning's logistics. Unified antidote for medicine, food and water. Yichen's medical station rescued 3,000 in exchange for trust, and the survivors smashed the frequency of the transportation funds to sweep. Her low-pitched killing welding engine orange flames continued. Full of fuel, the alliance to destroy the source of the convoy. The new order of the dome is established. The cycle of ice and fire ends. But Su Yu's radio suddenly flashed the red dots on the outside. New signal. The giant nest of ruined buildings in the northeast is resurrected. The Bird King's red light mutant army is approaching the dome. The backup virus is activated. Queen Chutian's blood flag leapt back to the fortress with a ferocious smile. New battle with the goddess. My legs are broken and I need to clean out the nest. Bai Ning turned around and the Ironblood was alert. The orange flames of the fortress rushed deep into the steel corridor. The survivors shouted, "New order Ironblood." The sandstorm thunderclouds outside reappeared, and the red-eyed shadows hovered in the sky. The convoy regrouped and slid along the torrent. The fire rain weakened and the corpse tide disappeared. The giant nest's red light pulsated and the cry for help was clear, but the thin man's radio flashed red dots dimly, and the external plunder signal was stolen. Bai Ning turned around and was alert. The eyes of the new recruit. Spy?